Sign in. The Plan Commission meeting of January 7th, 2021 is called to order. Can we have Commissioner Hand say the Pledge of Allegiance? Lead us.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
G, would you please call the roll?
Member Zarbachan?
Here.
Member Foley?
Here.
Member McGarry? Here. Member Stanley?
Here.
Member Verdum? Here. Member Hand?
Here.
Chairman Kozor?
Here. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on items tonight that are not on the Plan Commission? If you have things to talk about that aren't on the agenda, either the old business case for the 167th Street or the comprehensive plan, now would be the time to speak if you'd like to. Seeing none.
Can I have a point of order? 1 minute. Just to bring up something on new order, you said, because I do have something that's new order, and I think it's...
Before we have anyone swear in who's going to speak tonight, so who's going to do the swearing in tonight? Anyone who wants to speak tonight, please stand and raise your right hand. BJ, could you swear them in? Or Gia?
Just please say I do again this statement. Please raise your hand and say I do have a family. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do.
Thank you.
Is everybody signed in? Everybody that wishes to speak, are you signed in?
So you had a comment. If you come to the podium. Say your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Mike Dean. I live at 14559 Southwest Avenue Road, Homer, Glen, Illinois. This is to do in a matter of urgent with our police force. This is statewide. We have a matter up here with the housing, and I can understand that. But if we don't have a police force, we will not have housing, and you'll see a flood of people move. I'm just going to read a little article here with it, so it will be honest. I picked this up. It's right here. And if I'll submit it if anybody wants to read it. Your attention to this matter is urgent. Late on January 5th, the Illinois General Assembly filed a 611-page bill that eliminates law enforcement as we know it. It's from every community in the state. Every community in the state. The Illinois GA has, as we know it from every community in the state, the Illinois GA has until January 13th to pass legislation before the next duly selected General Assembly takes office. Senate Amendment number 2 to the House Bill 163 radically changes law enforcement. And now I'm just going to read some of the things that they're doing. I don't know how many people are Democrats or Republicans, but I was a Teamster at one time. And Teamsters, the Democrats are supposed to help you out. Listen to this one. Eliminates officers' rights to collective bargaining. That eliminates the rights then. They won't have a contract. And then, I'm just going to read a couple of them here that I went through because it's long. And then it says defunds any department that does not comply 100%. Can you imagine that? They're going to defund them if they don't apply.
The election's a fraud, what do you expect?
Well, let's get off our high horse. I call WGN, call the news media, get going on this subject. We don't want to lose our great police force.
Absolutely.
No.
We support the police. Our
Thank you very much. I just want to keep going. I'll give this to anybody that wants it. Eliminates cash bail. I'm going to go out and rob your restaurant. They'll let me go. And then, listen what I get. Enacts multiple benefits for felons. I get benefits. Can you imagine? If anybody wants to read this, it's online. They said, I picked this up. I was shocked. It's under a bill. It's under a pharmacy bill. I am just shocked for what's going on. I know this is a serious problem we have with Glen. I've been here for 34 years. I really love this neighborhood. I coached baseball, football. I was very active, but I never really came to these meetings. I listened to other people and I just kind of nodded. But after retiring, I came. But this year, if anybody wants to read it, raise your hand and I'll hand it to them or I'll give it to the mayor. Whatever, or if you have it already here, I don't know. But that's all I have to say, and thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope we can stop this bill.
I hope so.
Call your relatives, friends, or anybody else. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. The bill number is subject HB 163, Senate Amendment 2. So it's HB 163 Senate. That's what it is. Amendment 2. That's where it's at. So anybody wants to see it, raise your hand. I'll give it to the mayor. If you don't mind, Mayor, if you want to take a look. I just need it back because I'm going around. And like I said, try to call it the news meeting. We want this news meeting to put it in the news. I don't see it on the news.
No kidding. Everything's a secret,
Okay.
until they pass it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on
Yeah, what the hell is
items that are not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll move to approve the minutes. We've got the minutes of November 5th, 2020. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Motion by Commissioner Foley, second.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Stanley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes for November 19th, 2020. We have a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes of November 19th.
Motion by Commissioner McGarry, second. Second, Commissioner Hand. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're on to old business. The first case that we are going to revisit is HG 2013B. Who's going to be giving us the update on that?
I will.
Thank you.
Just as a reminder, this is a consideration of a request for a variance to reduce the required rear yard setback for a proposed attached garage addition from the required 40 feet to 33 feet. A variance to reduce the corner side setback for a non-dedicated right-of-way from the required 80 feet to 46 feet. A variance to increase the maximum allowable impervious surface from 30% to 35%. And a variance to increase the maximum allowable lot coverage from 20% to 34% for certain real property located in the R2 Single Family Residential District at 13564 West 167th Street. First, I'm just going to give a little brief overview of what happened at the last meeting this item was heard at. A public hearing was held on this item on November 5th, 2020. The public hearing was closed. There were no comments from the public. The commission members discussed the item and continued the item until a number of conditions could be met, most importantly securing a letter of no objection from one of the two pipeline companies that was still outstanding. As a refresh, the property is owner 2, it's a single-family home, a detached garage, and has been on the property since prior to 1961. The applicant is proposing to remodel the existing detached garage and attach it to the primary structure as an addition. The size of the proposed addition in total is 50 by 60 feet. I'm just going to kind of go through, this is the list of conditions that were on the variance, and we're just going to go through for the record just to make sure that we've addressed everything that needs to be addressed. The applicant did verify with staff that the proposed materials for the addition will match the existing home. He's proposing to update the siding on his own home to match the proposed elevations that were provided to us. They're in here, so we can go back through them and show them to you. So his house is currently white and it will become brown, so to match the new. And then the stone that's on the bottom will match the existing, I think he has limestone on the base, I believe, on the base of the house, so that will match that. All property maintenance violations will still need to be addressed prior to the issuance of the building permit, so that condition still stands on the variance. Staff feels comfortable that all the pipeline companies have field verified the location of the pipelines at this stage of the game. They have also both provided letters of no objection. These attachments are in the staff report. The location of the easements will still be required to be provided on the plat survey when it comes in for engineering and grading review, and that condition also still stands with the variance. That's a normal procedure for the building permit on an addition of this size anyways, but we wanted to just continue to have it on there as a condition. The Director of Development Services, Mike Zelma, which was, I already said this, was able to secure letters of no objection from both of the pipeline companies. Both of the letters do indicate that if changes occur to the proposal in size, if the footprint changes or its location changes, that they have to be notified and they get a chance to re-review that location. And that may, as we get building, we talked about this last time, as we get building plans with the footers, because we don't know what that's going to look like at this stage of the game, we may have to have them look at that. So, no further action is needed at this time as this condition was met. This project will be required to go through engineering review and will be granted final, and is required to have final engineering approval prior to the issuance of the building permit. And then I know Commissioner Verdum had asked about getting the well and septic located on the plat. Staff did submit a FOIA to Will County Health Department. It was right before the holidays though, and we have not heard back from them with any information on it. Although our director was pretty sure, Director of Development Services was pretty sure that they may not have this information because it's so old. But it will be a condition of the building permit that we have to have a location of that anyway, so it will have to be shown on there, even if it has to be surveyed. This is just a reminder of where the addition and what it looks like. And I don't know, we don't have to go back through the evidence of hardship unless you want to. I know we discussed this at the last meeting. These were the architecture plans. And that's all I have.
Thank you. The commissioners, you guys have had the evidence and the changes and all the items that have been forthcoming and addressed. Is there any other comments that the commissioners have at this time?
I have a few questions.
Sure, please.
Mr. Stevens, just a few questions.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you have a copy of this with you.
I don't.
All right, well, I drove by and I saw the flags for the pipeline that's closest to the garage. I didn't get out and measure or anything, but what is that measurement? Is that 4 feet, 5 feet?
It's roughly 6 feet.
Yeah, I think it is.
The closest. pipeline.
Agreed, I think it's approximately 6 feet is what the pipeline company noted as well.
It's further out, the pipeline is further out, yes, 6 feet.
Okay. The other question I had was, your sketch on the plat you provided, you're showing the new garage on the same footprint as the old garage.
Correct.
It's a little bit off kilter from the house, okay?
It is, and the garage is slightly cocked as well.
Right, they're both, but they're at different angles. So is your plan to square that addition off onto the house?
Onto the house, correct.
Actually it would swing the footprint of the garage north a little bit. On
Correct.
one corner.
Correct. Away from the pipeline, like I guess.
Away from the
Correct.
street, away from the
Correct.
pipeline.
So, like John, so it would go this direction, this corner.
Yeah, the lower right corner would swing up a little
This part would
bit.
go up.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
And where it attaches to the house, right, I was under the impression that that's the area that needs a gas curb.
a gas curb? Yes.
Yeah, rather than a deep footing, right? Because the house already has a basement.
Right, but there's no roof load on that western wall?
No.
Okay, but where it extends past the house, that's going to be footing and wall. To try to keep the structure from floating.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I get it.
Well, I work with a lot of architects, and when I told them how close this was to your garage and what you're looking at doing, what I'm trying to do is get a handle on moving forward with this, what you're going to run into, and there's a lot you can run into. So having that garage drawn on there, either by an architect with a site plan,
No,
or a surveyor,
which will come, right? I didn't want to spend all the money and have you guys reject the variances, right? I'm already, since October, and here we are, January, still talking about it.
I understand that.
Okay.
I'm just advising to get a better handle on the exact location of the garage. Then you've got to send that back into both of the pipeline companies, because they don't know about the footing and wall. So by the time you dig there, you're just a few feet, about 3 feet away, okay? The markings can be off by...
To extend past, well, they physically located the pipe. So
Well, there's still some play in there?
I agree. And at that point, you're digging by hand, right?
Well, yes, you are.
Okay, so.
That's where I was getting to this.
Yeah. No.
So make sure, those two pipeline companies have to see, like Melissa stated.
Well, okay, and that's my contention with you guys here, is that I have easement agreements with these people. And anything that you guys have been seeking is for the village's own purpose. I mean, it's for your insurance purpose in reality, not for mine.
I understand that too. It's the second time in, and I'm a little disappointed we didn't have a survey done to decide on the variance. And the variances, Brian, I really don't have a problem with. I'm just trying to help you move forward, knowing what to expect, because a lot can happen, and everything we're doing here tonight can just kind of go down the tubes.
Now I have until at least March to do all that, right? Because obviously I can't pour concrete in the winter.
Oh, well, the other question I had was, are you planning on hiring an architect to at least do the site?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And will they be also designing the structure?
The structure will probably be somewhat prefab, right? It'll come in prefab, we'll put it together and then truss it out.
But will you be providing the drawings or the architect?
More than likely, the company supplying the building will provide the building plans.
Okay, so I just want to kind of warn you, you can go down this road and on day one, you've got to move the garage. You've got to move it up, okay? So, I mean, I'm just stating where I've been a lot in my jobs is, at this point, it'd be nice to have that, on a survey, pinpointed where you want it, send it to the pipeline companies. wait for them to get back, because if you read page 3 on the BP, all of the, on their letter, all of the guidelines.
It's, again, your letter. I have an easement agreement that allows me to build. And it doesn't specify that I have to contact these pipelines in order to do so.
I understand. So I just wanted to be prepared. You've got to get back to them, showing them you're going to have a footing and wall that's going to be closer, and that's what they both letters stated. Okay?
For the village to do that.
No, that's
For the village to do it, because it's obviously, again, I have easement agreements that they don't mention any of this stuff that the village is requiring me.
I'm just doing, again, what we're stating is all I'm doing.
And that was a letter to the village, correct? It wasn't a letter to me.
No, that's,
A letter to the village. That's who requested it. I didn't contact,
is this a letter to the village or to?
I didn't contact the pipeline.
Yeah, either way, I don't think it really makes much difference for the variance hearing, so.
It doesn't, right?
Are there any other questions from the Plan Commission?
No. I don't have any.
Lynn?
No, thank you.
If there's no other questions, does someone want to make a motion?
I've got it, Carol.
I move to adopt the findings as the findings of the Plan Commission and to recommend approval with conditions of number 1, a variance to reduce the required rear yard setback for the proposed attached garage addition from the required 40 feet to 33 feet. Number 2, a variance to reduce the corner side setback for a non-dedicated right-of-way from the required 80 feet to 46 feet. And number 3, a variance to increase the maximum allowable impervious surface from 30% to 35%. And number 4, a variance to increase the maximum allowable lot coverage from 20% to 34% for certain real property located in the R2 Single Family Residential District at 13564 West 167th Street, Homer, Glen, Illinois, case number HG2013-V, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the architecture of the addition shall meet the exterior materials ordinance and be architecturally consistent with the principal structure. Condition number 2, all property maintenance violations shall be corrected prior to the issuance of a building permit for this addition. Condition number 3, the location of the well and septic shall be provided on the plat of survey when an application is submitted for a building permit. Condition number 4, pipeline easements shall be added to the plat of survey and to the engineering drawings. Condition number 5, approval of final engineering prior to the issuance of the building permit. And the other attachments are included as exhibits.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Gia, could you call the roll?
Member Han?
Yes.
Member Verdum?
Yes.
Member McGarry?
Yes.
Member Foley?
Yes.
Member Zerachek?
Yes.
Chairman Kozor?
Yes.
Member Stanley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second case tonight, old business, the 2020 Comprehensive Plan continuance.
Can I ask 1 second?
Sure.
To the board?
Absolutely.
You have any idea, BJ, or anything?
January 27th.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Stevens, are you still here?
You might have watched that.
Oh, you left.
So for the comprehensive plan continuation, we still have an open public hearing. I believe staff would like to say a few words at the beginning. We have a presentation. And then a reminder again, if anyone... Sorry.
I thought you were moving on to the next case.
We were, and I just missed one thing.
mentioned that the item will go to the board on December, on January 27th.
January 27th. Thank you.
Then we're going to have a presentation tonight, some clarification of some of the answers to a lot of the questions that the community has brought up. We'll also have an opportunity to continue the public hearing and give an opportunity to provide new information, new insight from the residents. And as a reminder, if you haven't signed in and would like to speak tonight, please sign in, and we will swear in people who came late at that time. But for right now, we'll continue with staff and their presentation and any comments that they would like to make. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if you would give me a few minutes where there's some feedback, where I could just make a few opening comments. Is that better? Okay. Before we get into a formal presentation with staff that this all has prepared, okay?
Thank you.
So first of all, I want to say that I'm very pleased to see that so many people here tonight at the public hearing. Hopefully we have a good attendance on Zoom as well. We always want to encourage public input when it comes to any project, but particularly something that is a long-range planning event for the entire community. If you'll humor me for a few moments, I want to take everyone back, a little bit back in a couple of years to explain how we got here tonight. And so I'm going to ask everyone to go back to 2017 with me. And in 2017, the village undertook what is called a National Citizen Survey. And it was conducted by the National Research Center, which is an organization that many communities across the country use to do surveying for public input as it relates to quality of life, housing, economic development, transportation needs, things like that. That survey was completed in 2017 at the direction of the then village board. And the survey was sent out to 1,500 total addresses that were selected via statistical sampling method representing each geographic area within the village. It was scientifically based, and we had a response rate of 34%. That survey is typically done every 5 years. So since it was done in 2017, it would be due to be done again in this coming year, which is something that we'll be discussing during our budget process in the spring to do that. And it's a benchmarking survey to see how well the village is performing as it relates to our citizens and our businesses and our residents. So that was in 2017, and that really started where we are today. So then we're going to jump forward to 2018. And in 2018, the village board adopted their first strategic plan. It was a 5-year strategic plan, and it covered basically 6 pillars, I call them, or goals or objectives. And those 6 pillars in 2018 adopted by the village included economic development as one, financial stability as another, growth as another, intergovernmental partnerships, recreational amenities, and public infrastructure. Those are the 5. Those are the things that we work on every single year, both staff as well as the village board, to evaluate how we are doing within the community. Are we making progress on those 6 goals and objectives, and how are we doing it? We base our budget and our capital budgets and everything that we do in terms of programming against those 6 pillars. Again, that 5-year strategic plan also used that 2017 survey that was done as a basis to continue to move forward for long-range planning for the entire community. So what has happened since 2018 that we can tie back to that 5-year strategic plan and those 6 goals and objectives? A lot actually has happened. Can't take credit for it because I haven't been here for only 18 months. But the community should take credit for it and the board should take credit for it. I'm going to just give you a few examples of what those things were. And you can see as I go through them, you can see how they tie back to those 6 goals and objectives set by the 5-year strategic plan. Expansion of existing businesses. We actually had great success in that, including having corporate headquarters that have opened in the last 2 years. Paid off all the village debt, so that ties back to financial stability. The village is debt-free. New retail and restaurant businesses continue to open in the village. In fact, in this past year, in 2020, during the year of the COVID pandemic, we had 19 new businesses open. This is a lot about the Homer Glen community. We have now a beautiful 103-acre park that has been open to the public right behind Village Hall. That wasn't in existence back then when we started this whole long-range planning. And the feedback we received from everyone is they love it, and they want to continue to see things happen there. We've expanded our recreational and programming We've done additional special events that we've offered to the community. Again, that ties back to the recreational amenity goal. How many of you have attended the trunk or treat in 2019? The Santa parade that we just were able to finish this past year. We're continuing to offer these additional recreation opportunities, again, tying back to all the things that were done in the previous years. As far as fixing our drainage programs, as you all know, we've inherited a lot of drainage problems, and we're continuing to work on those. And we have an annual drainage program that we do every single year, and the village board budgets that during the budget process. As far as intergovernmental partnerships, we're working with the transfer of the road district stewardship. That's a big thing to move our village forward. Again, tied back to the strategic plan and tied back to that national citizen survey of how we were doing and what was the goals and objectives of our residents. So we own our own water and sewer line down 159th Street. We are in the business of utilities, and that's a good thing because it allows us to control future growth along the 159th Street corridor. We weren't in the game before, now we are. And that ties back to public infrastructure. And the reason I'm pointing these things out tonight, because I want the community to see the evolution of long-range planning that has been happening, not just starting today or tonight, but really started back in 2017. And this is a continuous journey as we do long-range planning. So tonight, we are here tonight, and now, out again, the 5-year strategic plan that was done and adopted, one of the things is that we need to update our comprehensive plan. It hasn't been updated. Typically, comprehensive plans are updated every 5 to 10 years by local communities, and that's throughout the country. So this is not unique to just the village of Homer, Glen, or to the state of Illinois. But good planning, because things happen. Think about your life cycle in your family. Where you were when you first got married, and where you are maybe when you're retired, things change, right? Goals change, priorities change, and you have to adjust them. Same thing with a comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan is just that. It is a plan and it is a vision. It is not a code. There's nothing that's in this book or in this document that once it moves forward says this is the way it's going to be. Codes still have to be revised. Code visions still have to be done. Projects still have to go through the regular public hearing approval process, just like they did yesterday, just like they did 5 years ago, and just like they did back in 2001 when the community was incorporated. So I want to make sure everyone understands it. A comprehensive plan is just that. It is a plan, it is a vision. Some things happen in those things, some things get changed. But it is not a code, it is not regulations that are rules that say thou shalt follow this. So we're sitting here tonight, we're talking about the updated comprehensive plan. And there's been a lot of misinformation that's been out there. And I wanted to take just a few moments to talk about some of that misinformation. Because I truly believe that everyone is entitled to their opinion, but not everyone is entitled to their own facts. And so this plan has not been put together under the cloak of darkness. So many of you may have heard that. You may have seen that on social media. You may have heard it from your fellow neighbors or the residents. But this plan started back in 2019, even before I came here, and I came in 2019. And there's been a lot of work, hard work put into this. We set up tents at all of our special events, even at Homerfest, our largest event we have, we usually have about 20,000 people come, if not more, trying to get input from our residents. We created a very own comp plan website just for this project alone back in 2019. And it's tied to our village website. We publish every single meeting, every single workshop, every single open house on our website. And that totals 7, bringing it to tonight. We posted information on our Facebook page. We included this project in every newsletter that we've sent out, which was directly mailed to every single resident in the village as well. We had over 200 people attend throughout this various 18-month period who have been engaged and were aware of it and have been working on this as well. So I think it's very important for everyone to understand that this is not something that happened overnight in some sort of secret backdoor room. There's a lot of work that's been put into this. And I think it's important, and we recognize it just because, let me tell you, trying to get community engagement is difficult, right? And that is why I generally say, when I see the room full tonight, this is a good thing. Because we want community engagement. A community has to be engaged in the long-term planning of their community. So often we don't get it, which is why we try so many different venues, like the Channel 6 and things like that, to try to get the word out and the information out there, that this is a big project that we've been working on for a very long time. And I know a lot of the planning commissioners, you've gone to every one of these meetings that we've had, every workshop, every open house, everything. So, but I want to make sure that as we continue to move forward, that we don't discredit and we don't disrespect those 200 plus people who have been involved in the process for the 18 months and have been committed to it. Their input is just as valuable as anyone else who's here or who has arrived to the play or the show late. I also want to make sure that we don't discount the people who own the property, the developers, the brokers, the real estate agents, because they are vested stakeholders in this community as well. It's all about balance, right? And their voices are important to be heard too. So those things shouldn't be discounted at all. A couple of things I want to touch on real brief, and then I promise I'll shut up. I'm going to hand it over to Mayor. Is there's been some other misinformation out there, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of these things, and then DJ and Melissa, and I think Todd's on the line, right? It's going to also touch on some of these things. But there's a couple points I'd like to make right up front. The first point I'd like to make is nowhere in this draft does this comp plan create a new apartment or multifamily zoning district. Nowhere. Nowhere at all in this draft. In fact, if you were to compare the 2005 land use plan to the 2020 land use plan, we're going to get into it later on tonight, you will actually find that in the 2005 comprehensive plan, there are more targeted multifamily zoning areas than in what we're proposing tonight. That's a fact. What does the plan do? It does recommend a mixed-use zoning district, a new concept, which has to be fully discussed, and everyone has to understand what that means. Because we don't have a mixed-use zoning district in the village of Homer Glen today. And that is a new concept that's being introduced with this comp plan. And that mixed zoning district is being recommended to go along 159th Street. And there's a good reason for that. Because where else would you want to have a mix of those type of uses other than our major commercial corridor? Because those uses of mixes feed off of each other. They survive off of each other. And everyone has said we want a downtown. We want, we unfortunately sometimes communities compare each other against each other. And the only way to get a true downtown is through a mixed-use zoning district. That's the only way you can do it. So I want to make sure that there's clarity on that, Mr. Chairman. So the other thing that there's been a lot of comments been made about Section 8 or low-income housing, and we don't want those people living in this community. And I'm just going to state it right here, right now, that we're not going to go anywhere on that issue, and let me tell you why. When we do zoning law, and this is not just state law, this is federal law, zoning is blind to who lives in the house and how that housing is paid for, as it should be. Otherwise, if it's not, it's considered housing discrimination. And everyone gets in trouble when we go down that path. So we're not going to go down that path. Multifamily is multifamily. It does not matter who lives there, how they pay for their rent, how they pay for their mortgage. And that's the way it should be, and that's the way it is. And I want to make sure that that's very clear. So, in addition, we believe that there are ways to solve the issue of affordability. And when we say affordability, we don't mean necessarily low income. Affordability, and we're going to get into that later on into the presentation, is also a standard that we are required to meet per state statute. The state of Illinois, the federal government, has stated that local communities have to have at least 10% of their housing to be classified as affordable. And we are at 3.3%. Now, the state can come into local communities and they can say, you know what, you're not making enough progress, and therefore we're going to mandate it on you. And I think we would all agree that no one wants the state of Illinois coming into Homer Glen telling us what to do, right? So we have to plan for a variety of housing and in quality development to make sure that we're making progress. And we're going to get into what affordability means for a family of four living in Homer Glen, affordability is $72,000 a year. That is what it means. So I just want to make sure that we're very clear up front and that we don't go down a path that we cannot come back from. So that's really all I have to say is that, we have a lot of great things happening in the community. And I think the future is very bright. But I think one thing you do need to remember that when you answer this question, how many new residential or big commercial projects have you seen happen in the village of Homer Glen in the last decade? The answer to that is zero. We've had new businesses open, we have businesses relocate, but you haven't had any new subdivision open in the last 10 years. So that's something you have to think about, because communities, in order to thrive and survive, have to continue to grow. It's how they grow. Do they grow smart? Do they grow sustainably? Those are the things that we're talking about tonight. And that's why community input is important. So that's really all I got. Let's get to work tonight. I'm going to hand it off to the mayor. I don't know if you want anything else you want to add. But those are my opening remarks.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that this is a public discussion, that we need to have respect for one another in this room. When we listen to you to come up to speak, we are respectful and quiet and listening. We demand that we get the same respect out of the audience. Anyone who does not want to be respectful and listen and be courteous will be removed. I appreciate the public discussion, but we need it to keep public discourse. Thank you.
After we go through this process, so everyone does see exactly what we are doing and what we're not doing, I would hope and pray that, I don't look at Facebook. I think Facebook is a total waste of life. But there are a million things that are put on Facebook that are so untrue and so misinformed, it's pathetic. So I've said a million times since I've been in here that if you have a question on anything that we're doing in this village, my phone number's listed. Call me. I answer every single solitary phone call, and if somebody needs you to go to their house, I would take a look at them. It's nonsense to beat up your own village. Our staff, our planning commission, all our committees, all my trustees, my clerk, my village manager, everyone that works for us, we're working very hard for what we've done for the village. We want to keep it going the same way. The rumors that go around are just horrible. But if that's what you want to do, knock your socks off. You're just informing, not informing. It's not the information that the people really need to know. So like I said, if someone tells you something and you don't think this is right, call them. You can call any one of the trustees. You can call the village and they'll put you on to whoever can help. But this nonsense of what they're doing and just making things up, like there's a complex in the property. We do want a complex here because it could bring a lot of money here, but it's not going to happen. But I've heard probably 55 times that it's here already. God, I've driven all over the village. I've never seen it. So, and all the times that they're telling us that we have people here that are loading their pockets with money. I don't even eat anything or drink anything if we go to a grand opening. If I go to a restaurant, I pay. I don't want anything. I didn't do this for money. I did this because there's a difference between a politician and there's a difference between public servant. We're all public servants here. We are here for you. So all I would like to do is, instead of bashing, why don't you find out what the truth is and then talk about it. Are there going to be some things that people have some concern on? Sure. Everyone's got an opinion. So if you have it, all we're asking you is just come to us. It's real simple. There's people in here that know that they can call me anytime they want. And a lot of you I don't know, I have no issue. Call me up. If I can help you out, I'll help you out. If I can't, I'll tell you that I can't do it for you. And the same thing with my trustees and the same thing with the staff. But this beating up everybody is getting old. That's all I've got to say for right now. So I would like you all to pay attention to what we have on this, so you actually see what the truth is. And if everyone could please turn off their phones,
Thank you,
it
Mayor.
would be very nice.
So, Mr. Chairman, so I'd like to expand a little bit more on the community engagement activities and also the land use breakdown that Carrie has touched upon with a little bit more details. So community engagement was an important component of the update process, and we had, as Carrie noted, numerous activities starting in June 2019. We launched the project website in June. We had the booth at Homer Fest, which was hugely successful, where we had more than 600 unique comments shared at the booth. We had several focus group meetings in June of 2019. We had the first open public house in June 2019. In August 2019, we did a village board workshop on sign regulations. In October 2019, we did a workshop on design guidelines, and we sought further input from the board later on the housing options, lot sizes, building materials. We did a community design workshop in February 2020, and that was a huge success too. We had a room full of people with several workshops and breakout tables. We had residents actually participate in the sub-area planning, and some of the ideas you see on the sub-areas, they actually came from the residents and businesses in town. We had a second public open house and public hearing, which started November 19, and is still open today, so you still have opportunity to comment after the staff report. So moving on to the next slide, please. Just to show, show you the lay of land. The existing land, if you look at the existing land, there's approximately 7,442 acres that are built out, which is approximately 49% of the town. And of this, the single major use is single family, which is 65.8%. I know we received a lot of comments on multifamily use, and if you look at the actual built-up area, it's only 0.6%, not even 1% of the total land area. It's about close to nearly 100 acres. Now, of the remaining 7,834 acres, 2,100 acres are occupied by parks, open space, utilities, and this does not include vacant land available for development. So multifamily is not a new type of use we're introducing. In fact, as Gary noted, the 2005 comprehensive plan included several areas, and we'll show you on the map shortly right after this. What is new is mixed-use designation for the 159th Street corridor, which is a new concept. And there's also potential to kind of limit the multifamily within the mixed use, and we'll go through that in a minute as well. And staff is not proposing any new standalone multifamily outside the corridor. And instead, we would rather contain that within the 159th Street corridor. Mixed use has been used in many suburban towns and some of the suburban downtowns, which was, as mentioned earlier, was noted as a desired feature in the public input. Some people wrote, we want to see it, sort of like a downtown kind of setting. So moving on to the next slide, please. So this kind of visually shows the extent of land, and you can see the predominant single-family use in the first three bar graphs, and move on to the multifamily, 0.6%. Mixed use is a new category, will take about 8.3% of the land, or about 1,271 acres. That is the only concept that's new in this plan, compared to the 2005 plan. Next slide. So if you look at this map, you can see several mixed-use areas proposed in the 2005 plan. Multifamily. And they're all clustered around the 159th Street corridor and Bell Road, except two that kind of further west from Bell. They total 276 acres overall. And of that, You got about 183 acres within the 159 state corridor. So, as I said before, mixed use is something has been on the books in 2005. What we're trying to do is kind of make it more targeted and focused and contained, rather than, having those locations all over the map. So, with that, I think the next slide is the 2020 land use map. Again, as I said before, there are very few areas outside the corridor that they're currently built as mixed use, and they total nearly 100 acres, and we're going to stop there. We're not going to propose any new multifamily outside the 159 state corridor. And just for reference, we also show the forest preserve. Some of this is out of town, and we'll get into those details at the end of the presentation. So with that, I believe Todd, one of our consultants, is going to kind of give a response to the public comments.
Thank you, BJ. Thank you, Plan Commissioners, and those staff for this opportunity to continue our conversation from the public hearing back in November. Just as a matter of introduction, my name is Todd Vanadalak. I am one of the planning consultants and the project manager for the comprehensive plan. I am an independent consultant from Egan Knox Planning. Along with me on the screen are other members of our team. Constable is the principal in charge and other consultant planner. He is from Savoy Consulting Group. And also with us is Andrew Johansson. He is the lead economic development consultant. He is from Intera Group, which is also providing engineering services for this project. On behalf of my team, we want to thank all of community members who took the time to share their community comments with us at the public hearing back in November. We reviewed all of the comments and provided responses to address the various questions and concerns. The memo of our responses is provided in your Plan Commission packets, and it is also posted on the project website, which is myhomeworkland.org. We will quickly highlight responses to major comments. Please note that we are providing high-level summary of our responses on the following slides. More in-depth responses are provided in the team memo that I just mentioned that's on the Plan Commission packet, in your Plan Commission packet. So the first major comment that we received was that there was opposition to adding multifamily housing, particularly apartments, to the local housing stock. Our response, just in general terms, a diverse housing stock enables a person to stay in one community throughout their entire life, regardless of their budget, needs, family structure, or life stage. In addition, design guidelines can help ensure high-quality development that adds value to the community. A second major comment was opposition to the missing middle housing concept. In particular, it was viewed as a threat to Homer Glen's single-family detached residential identity. The general response was that there is a greater likelihood that this missing middle housing concept would be integrated into new development than into any existing neighborhoods. Existing residential zoning will not change, however. As BJ stated earlier with the bar chart, about 66% or 2/3 of all land uses will be comprised of single-family residential uses. Next slide, please. On this slide, there was also a concern that multifamily development could lead to crime. In particular, comments were provided to staff claiming that there was rampant crime occurring at two new multifamily developments in Orland Park. The village filed a Freedom of Information Act or FOIA request. And the village staff requested calls for service for the Crescent Circle and Orland Park crossing developments in Orland Park for the last 2 years, and sorted the calls into the top 10 categories as shown in the data below. As you see, none of the calls here are criminal in nature. Next slide, please. Moving on to major comments. Carrie Filling, the village manager, touched upon this earlier about the opposition to low-income housing. I'm going to provide a quick response again, so it bears repeating. Prohibiting low-income residents in the community is illegal and is considered housing discrimination. Home Glen is also not compliant with federal and state requirements to have at least 10% of the housing stock to be affordable. Thus, it is important for Home Glen to provide housing options for individuals that earn less than the median household income. And as you can see here, in Will County,
the 4-person household affordable limit is equal to 80% of the area median family income, which is equal to about $72,800. Another major comment was that there was concern over the 159th Street corridor being overtaken by multifamily residential projects as part of the mixed-use corridor. Land use developments would be governed by updated zoning standards that ensure that the 159th Street corridor is not all multifamily residential, as this would be counter to the goal of a mixed-use corridor to promote commercial development. Many of the parcels along 159th Street are narrow and deep and would benefit from an ability to have multiple uses. And the final major comment on this slide is that there was concern that empty stores should be built first before new ones are developed. In the brief response here, or general response, is that the village constantly works with property owners and potential businesses to fill vacancies, but they also, at the same time, attract new development to provide a balanced business mix and enhance the tax base. Just for reference, the current village vacancy rate is about 5.8%, which is still lower than the region. And next slide, please. And the final slide that I have for you is some of the other comments that we got, more about clarity. A lot of times, a lot of the questions or comments that were raised were clarified by just looking in the chapters of the comprehensive plan, so I'm just going to summarize them here for you quickly. So mixed-use development was a common question that we got, just understanding what that is. That's explained in more detail in Chapter 4 of the framework plan. Same with business attraction, that's also explained in Chapter 4, but it's also provided more in depth in Chapter 7, which covers retail market strategies. The impact of growth on services like police, parks, and so on, that's covered in Chapter 8, community facilities and assets plan. There was some question about, or a comment about water costs, or there was actually a few comments about water costs. That's covered in Chapter 10, which covers utilities and infrastructure. And then Chapter 11 is the design guidelines chapter. That covers a lot of the questions that were raised, or comments that were raised about trees and open space, as well as the impact of conservation design, the conservation design ordinance on development. Just a quick note, it is important to note that there were edits to the land use plan and transportation plan that are included in the memo if you want to take a look at that. That's posted on the project website again, and also in your board packet.
Good evening. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Melissa King. I'm a senior planner here in the Planning and Zoning Department. I work with BJ. He's my supervisor. And staff has put together, BJ and myself and Carrie put together some vision boards. We all know that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I think that sometimes in documents like this and long-range planning efforts, we use terminology and it's a lot of words and it's long, and a lot of times people don't understand what we mean when we say certain things. And so we'd like to just go over a few things and show you just in some pictures and discussion about what we mean when we say a few of these things. So what do we mean when we say quality construction and architectural diversity? Architecture is subjective and comes in many forms. A combination of architecture and a variety of architecture helps to create community character. Variety in architectural style does not necessarily mean lower quality, though. On this slide, all these homes are in Homer Glen. While we have a masonry ordinance in Homer Glen that's pretty strict, it's an amendment to the International Building Code. It's 100% masonry on the first floor of all residential homes. These homes were granted variances. The one on the bottom left is actually did not grant it variance, but it has, it's just a unique architectural style in town. But the remainder of them are all granted variances for exterior materials. And I think in these situations, what's important to understand is that the materials that were used, the alternatives that were proposed and approved, still meet very strict building guidelines. In Homer, we actually have in our building code that if you are going to propose alternative materials, that they still have to meet pretty stringent standards. So if you're going to propose to do siding on a home, That siding has to be a fiber cement product, which is like a hardy board. I think a lot of people are familiar with that product. And so when we say we're looking at alternative materials, we're not looking to propose vinyl siding in the village of Homer Glen. If we were looking to propose alternative materials, it would still meet very high quality standard materials. On this slide, these homes are not in Homer Glen, but it just gives you an idea of some other architectural styles. The home on the top right of the screen is a traditional farmhouse architectural style, which is very popular right now. We see this a lot. We get a lot of requests for farmhouse style architecture, variances for materials. And this just gives you another example of some different architectural styles. So what do we mean when we say mixed use? I know we've talked about this a lot. This is what VJ and Carrie were talking about as one of the big kind of changes or proposed elements in the comp plan that's different than what we've normally heard. And mixed use can mean a lot of things, but there's two kind of real high level types of mixed use. One is horizontal mixed use and the other is vertical mixed use. Horizontal mixed use is what you see here on this slide. Is a type of mixed use that's frequently seen in suburban areas. Locally, I would say that Goodings Grove is a good example of horizontal mixed use. While you see the retail frontage, the lots in the back, the single-family homes, and the condos that are part of that is all part of like a neighborhood that would be considered horizontal mixed use. So horizontal mixed use combines single-use buildings on distinct parcels in a range of land uses, but often is spread out. And so this example that I put together is in Frankfurt. It's right on Route 45. So I don't know, many of you may have driven past this before. The subdivision is actually called Abbey Woods, and the entrance to it has kind of a top steeple, and they sit on stone, I think there's stone walls on either side on the entrance when you go in. I'm just going to walk you through this. The first image, number one, as you can see on the map, it's, let me just show you right here. This is Route 45. And number one right here is where this blue is on the zoning map in Frankfurt. This is where the office buildings are. So you see there's a few office buildings in this area that kind of flank the road, and they're screened from the front of the road as well. Number two is large lot single-family detached housing. And these are very, very large lots. I would say they're probably between 1 and 2 acres. All masonry homes, beautiful architecture. Number three is a traditional single-family detached. So right here between the offices and also in the back, this is adjacent to an open space area. These lots are about half that size, and you can see they're kind of closer together. There's more of a streetscape in this area that you can see. Number four just shows you what that entrance boulevard looks like when you're inside it. You would never even know that Route 45 is right here. And then number five is the commercial that's right along, it's right here. This is where the Starbucks is. Or right here, sorry. There's the Starbucks, and I believe there's a Chase Bank right here as well. Number six is single-family attached duplexes. And these are one-story ranches with just 2 units on each side. So it's a pretty low density. We refer to it in planning as single-family attached. So a long time ago, maybe even 10, 20 years ago, they would refer to this as multifamily sometimes, but I think that that's now referred to as single family. They have single entrances, oftentimes it's ownership, that type of use. Number seven is single family attached townhomes. These are 2-story townhomes. Oftentimes these actually have a greater presence in the built environment than the ranch style duplexes. And then number 8, you can see in the back here, this is all open space that was preserved on the backside of this property. So this did not come in as one PUD or one planned development in one time. There was a portion of this that was a PUD, and then there were other portions of this that were just built after the fact and just happened to work together. One of the things I will mention that VJ, when we were looking at the 2005 comprehensive plan map, that you can see on that old comp plan that along the corridor, all of these mix of uses was already there. And what gives the mixed use corridor gives the planning staff the flexibility and landowners the flexibility to do things like this so that you can have a mix of uses that work appropriately together. Okay, so what do we say, what do we mean when we say vertical mixed use? Vertical mixed use combines multiple uses in the same building, provides for more public uses on lower floors, such as retail or restaurants, and more private uses on upper floors, such as residential, office, or hotel spaces. Through the comprehensive plan process, village staff has heard interest from residents in the downtown or town center. I know Carrie mentioned this as well. And these are examples of the type of development, these pictures that you see here, that would typically create that downtown feel. It's most likely that these types of developments that we were looking at here, the horizontal as well as vertical, would be found along that mixed-use corridor. All right, this is another thing that we say a lot, and it's in the comp plan as well, and I think it's appropriate to talk about right now, is what we mean when we say landscape enhancements or landscape screening or landscape buffering. Anytime new development is proposed, especially as we talk about the concept of mixed use, it's very important to talk about how we treat the edges and the seams between those uses. And landscape buffering between land uses with a mix of plant types, berming, fencing can provide an attractive screen. From left to right here on the top, you can see heavy landscaping with a fence and a berm. There's actually commercial right behind this. Oftentimes in planning, we do try to stay away from the residential right next to the commercial because it does create a lot of problems. But you can see how you can't even see that based on all this screening that's here. The same thing here, and you can see how number 3, there's some parking lot landscaping that buffers cars from adjacent sidewalks. And then on number 5, there's an example of what you can do with screening along an arterial road if you have residential that abuts an arterial road. So in our comp plan, I know we haven't talked about this much, but we actually don't have a landscape code in Homer Glen. So it's been on our agenda to try to adopt a landscape code within the next year or so. It's very important as we get any new development, even things that aren't mentioned in the comp plan right now. We have current developments that come in and we struggle to get them to do landscaping plans for us. So what do we mean when we say community character? Community character can mean a lot of things, but one way in which it is defined is by our built environment. Earlier I talked about how architectural diversity can help create community character. Diversity and architectural scale also adds character to a community.
Thank you very much, Paul.
If I may step away for a minute, I think it's important for us to remember that not everybody wants to or can live in a large lot home that's 5,000 square feet and is made out of, constructed of completely stone and brick. Our demographics in any community are made up of a lot of different types of people, different ages, different income levels. And right here in Homer Glen, we have a number of neighborhoods that already exist in the fabric of our community that provide small lots with small home footprints and alternative materials and are affordable. These 2 neighborhoods right here, Pebble Creek and Meadowview, we just chose to highlight those 2 in particular. I did kind of a rough estimate just so that we could have a good understanding of what those lot sizes were in there, and they range from 7,000 to 13,000 square feet in Pebble Creek and 8,000 to 13,000 square feet in Meadowview. And these are not the only 2. These are other ones that I noted when I was doing some research that we have already in the village of Homer Glen that provide small lot sizes. Sylvan Hills, Derby Meadows, Lancaster Square, Pheasant Hollow, Derby Hills. And these developments have a lot of lots. These are our residents. They're our neighbors that live on these smaller lots, and they provide an important component to the village. So what do we mean when we say neo-traditional design? So I know we talked about this, it's in the comp plan, and sometimes this language becomes confusing. So it really just means, it's referring to old traditional subdivision layout that you would see maybe even in a city. Neo-traditional design is known as new urbanism. It's also called traditional neighborhood development. It's a pattern that's inspired by historic neighborhoods and is characterized by small lots, narrow front yards, front porches, detached garages in the back of the yard, walkable streets, public squares, and village greens. And oftentimes they have very narrow backyards as well. So you kind of give and take. You have a small lot, you have street frontage, and you may not have a big backyard. But you have a lot of sense of place, which is nice. And we have a very successful example of neo-traditional design in Homer Glen. It's called Evelyn's Gate. I'm sure everybody's probably aware of it and familiar. The lots in here, surprisingly, are 6,000 to 9,000 square feet. Now, this is in Evelyn's Gate North. There's a second part to Evelyn's Gate that has a little bit larger lots on the southern side. In this neighborhood, it's characterized by quality architecture, central green space, park, and the homes are valued between $380,000 and $470,000. So this is an example, and we just wanted to include this because we have talked in the comprehensive plan, and there have been some recommendations made regarding our conservation subdivision ordinance that we have in place currently. And so I included this case study. If you ever get a chance to go up and see this development, it's really nice. It's called Prairie Crossing. It's a highly recognized and successful conservation subdivision in Grays Lake. The development includes single-family detached lot sizes from 7,000 square feet to 13,000 square feet, multifamily, and an array of community amenities including significant open space, preservation, gazebos, community buildings, and community gardens and walking paths. This project was achieved by designing for smaller lot sizes, including a diversity of housing types, diversity of materials, and appropriately sited lots in order to protect the most environmentally sensitive open spaces. In our code, we have had a difficult time, in the last 10 years since this code was adopted, we haven't had a new subdivision. And we've had people try to meet our code and have been unsuccessful. The regulations, we have a few that have been highlighted in the comprehensive plan. One of them is that every lot has, 90% of the lots have to touch the open space that you preserve. And it becomes almost infeasible for someone to make that work. And you can even see in this plan how some of these lots have been tucked along the back side and on the inside of these areas, like through here on the middle part and through here and on the back side and up here that don't touch that open space. And I would suggest that it's probably significantly more than 10% of the housing stock. So I think, we talk about how important it is for that open space to be accessible by all the lots. I think that's important. So I think what our consultant has been talking about in the comprehensive plan is ways that we don't have to throw out the code, but in ways that we can make it actually realistic for the village. This last slide is, we're going to talk about this in just a minute. BJ is going to go over some recommendations that staff has to the draft plan based on comments from the public. One of the things that we did note, and we just added it to the list, I wanted to show you a vision board of this, is that this typology is listed in the comprehensive plan. It's an industrial use that's a hybrid industrial commercial. If you're familiar with the business WeatherTech, they have a headquarters, I think it's in Naperville, I believe, and they construct, have their headquarters, and do all of their factory. It's all right there. They do sales and warehousing and product creation all in the same place. And we have this use and typology in the comp plan, but it's nowhere on the future land use map. And staff doesn't really, I think we just wanted to kind of leave it open for discussion. We just wanted to highlight that this is in the comp plan, but it's not really, there's not a reality to it as far as a proposal or anything like that in the comp plan right now.
All right. So before we get to the public testimony, I just want to highlight some of the staff recommendations, which, would like to discuss in greater detail at the end of the meeting, after the public testimony is completed, but just want to go forward quickly before that. So this includes, as we mentioned earlier, focus the mixed-use designation in the 159th Street corridor, make that as a mixed-use corridor. Restrict the multifamily, any new multifamily to this mixed-use corridor, and clarify the missing middle just to make sure they're kind of limited to duplexes, doesn't include any multifamily like biplex or quadplexes in the single-family neighborhoods. And overall reduce the intensity of land use from the previous version with the lower density areas, putting back the 2.5 acre rural residential land use category on the map, and also reduce the extent of multifamily shown on the previous map. And we'll go through at the end of the meeting with the map. And also scale back on the intensity of development at the turning of Cedar and Bruce, including limiting the commercial development. And also discuss the potential for hybrid industrial uses, as you saw in the slide just a few minutes ago. This is a typology, not a future land use. We just want to get your feedback on whether you like, those kind of hybrid industrial uses in the community. The other items are mostly, corrections to the previous draft. So we can, get into these details at the end of the meeting. Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to continue the public testimony, and we also have about more than a dozen written emails, which Jia is going to read them after the in-person testimony. So I'd like to request you to do that.
Thank you. Just to reiterate, if you did not sign in and are wishing to speak tonight, please do that. Is anyone has not been sworn in who is going to be speaking tonight? If you could stand, raise your right hand, and VJ will swear you in. Or Gia, I'm sorry.
Are you signing in?
Yeah.
Okay. I just need you to say I do at the end of the statement. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. So we'll start with the in-person. I'm going to ask that everybody stay to under 5 minutes. If we start hearing things that are repeating, I'm going to ask to stop because we've been hearing the public testimony. We know a lot of the items that are been presented. We're going to have a lot of those also presented over email. Everything that we've gotten over the last couple months will be read to be a part of the public record. So I'm first going to go to Matthew Taravala of 13107 Sage Court.
I'm still thinking about what I'm going to talk about.
Okay. Mike Dean, 14559 Southwest Abbott.
Yeah, I'm listening to all this housing and the concept. I don't hear what you're really going to do yet. So, and about taxes, how many people are coming in, if there's schools, how many schools, are we going to build another school, is there going to be more taxes on us? These are my concerns, I want a pension now. I want to see what's going on with, and where you're going to have these housing. I mean, that's just my main right now. But I have to find out more about it. But I'm glad I'm coming to the meetings and finding out more about what you're doing with the housing and the federal government and the state. Here we go. Cross our fingers. I think you said federal is mandating 10% low income.
Affordable.
Affordable.
Between low income and affordable.
Yeah.
That's not new.
No, I understand that, but,
The state does too.
right. So we got to be careful with the federal and the state now. So I don't know what more concept you have, but I do appreciate it. I'll be following up on it.
If I could just, is it okay if I say something to him?
Please.
The entire plan is a 116-page document. It's on our website. It's also on the website we talked about previously. So I encourage you to go out and read it. And so a lot of your answers will be, a lot of your questions will be answered there. And if anyone wants a hard copy, we can print hard copies of it too.
Yeah, I would appreciate the hard copy because a lot of older people, I'm getting better at computers.
Absolutely.
I'll guarantee you, after being retired.
So someone can hard
But if you can give me a hard copy, I would appreciate it, and then I can go through it.
If you call BJ, we can have one printed for you.
Okay, I appreciate it very much, thank you.
Thank you. Steve Ballas, 12259 Derby Lane.
Well, the first thing I just want to say, this is still a representative democracy, so everybody up here is supposed to represent the people in this room and the people in all the subdivisions and the farms and everywhere else. So I hope that's something that you all keep in mind. Now, the way it started for me, I don't like the idea of apartments because it's going to mean more kids for our schools. Our schools are already struggling with all the people that are multiple families living together because of COVID. They lost their income. So you got 2, 3 families living in the same house now. All the kids are going to our schools. It's a big stressor. Then you're going to turn around and build apartments. And everybody's saying there's no apartments. I went to the public hearing in November. And I looked at all the sheets, and the word apartment was on the sheets. And I told the lady, I don't want any apartments over here. And then I was told that all the other cities and villages have apartments. And that's the way everything goes, and that's probably what's going to happen here. So I got a little bit aggravated because I know that happens. We're going to have more police, more fire. The schools are going to have to be increased with size, since there's another school. So we're going to have a lot of infrastructure problems. So I said, well, how do I stop this? She said, pull a little card out, and you don't have to put your name on it, but I did. And I put it in the bowl. And that was it. You know what? The bottom line is, it said apartments on the sheet. And then I've been told that multi-family means apartments. Well, if you want to see, instead of pretty pictures that you showed on the screen, go to Orland Park behind Mariano's and stand there at 8 o'clock at night and see if you can make it till 9 o'clock before someone mugs you. Go to Cedar Ridge, Victoria Crossing, Willow Walk, Broken Arrow. You can see all the properties that are real highly populated. They're close together. When I knock doors, I can go in one of those subdivisions, knock on the door, take 2 steps to my left, and knock on another door. Homer Glen doesn't, we live here because we don't want to live. I don't get aggravated real easy, but the whole concept of this drives me nuts. Because everybody thinks, you look at those pictures, and it's like a dog and pony show, like the thing in November. They all look beautiful, but go look at the actual sites that these are at. Go drive to Cedar Ridge, Victoria Crossing. They're nice neighborhoods, yeah, but how close are those houses? How many kids live in that house? And when them kids get to be teenagers and stuff, what percentage are on drugs? And what percentage are going to rob your car? What percentage are going to rob your house? I don't know, but I think that there's going to be a number. Because I lived in the city. And in the city, that's how you form gangs. Your block and the other block, and then the other block. And that's what happens when you get a lot of people living in one area. So I live here, I want it to stay like it is. And that don't mean I don't want development. Because development's important. But you got to be smart about it. And when you say multi-family, that's an apartment. And go look at these all around here, yeah, please. And then when you talk about affordable housing, maybe somebody should look up what's the percentage of affordable housing right now. Because there's a ton of people living in Homer Glen in beautiful houses on Section 8. We just don't know where they live because it's spread out. They're not all in one little bitty area like an apartment complex would do. I live behind Home Depot, and I look at that garbage that's up there. Who in their right mind would want to live there as a senior with 3 floors? Nobody. So what are we going to get there? They're not going to rent them, and then they're going to end up renting them out to subsidized people. And then they all have kids and they go to our schools. And then where do you guys think we're going to get the money? How many families do you know that the people lost their jobs? Everybody's got to know a bunch of them. And then go to Home Depot, look at all the people that are 50 50, 60 years old that lost their job, they're working at Home Depot, they got another job at another part-time place.
You got 30
Because
seconds,
they can't live. So please, change your mind and do not vote to approve this thing. Just put it to the side for another 20 years. That way I'll be dead. I mean,
Chica DeSomo, 1406 Summit.
I'm passing it. I thought they were just signing.
You don't need, no one else to talk, okay. Marty Pollock, 15613 Jean Lane.
Thanks for everyone's time tonight. My name is Mark Pavlik, lived in Homer Glen for 12 years, me and my family. I guess the original plan is what attracted me and my family to Homer Glen. Farms, I can look out both sides of my house to see farms. I love some of the changes that have happened in Homer Glen, the walkways. I love walking from one end of the town to the next end of the town. As Carrie mentioned, the events are incredible, and it's a great way to grow the community. In fact, I've been helping out in the Parks and Rec Committee meeting, and I think there is a lot of information that you might not hear in social media, but if you do go to these meetings, you do get informed. But with that said, one of the concerns I have had lately is the crime in Homer Glen. Particularly the carjacking on 143rd and Bell. That's not in Orland, that's not in Lockport, that's not close to home, that is home. And there's also been robberies within inside our subdivision. And it's not nobody's fault within inside this room, but that is a major problem that this community needs to start looking at to solve. But with that said, I do like Homer Glen the way it is. However, I am a realistic person, and I do believe in growth, and we do need change in this community to grow. So when I started looking at the plan, I actually did print out this entire plan and read it line by line. One of the things that I really enjoyed looking at was that there's going to be new business development, and the fact that there's a sports arena. Now, one of the things that really I was a little uninformed about was this missing middle housing. And I really encourage everyone to go to the internet Wikipedia page, and there's tons of information about missing middle income housing. It was formed by an architect out of San Francisco, Berkeley. His name is Daniel Parlek. His name is spelled Parolek. I really encourage everyone to look him up and look at what he stands for. The concept is really about, it occurred in San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, and LA, where there's a high density of high-tech community jobs, and housing prices went up, and affordable housing wasn't made for everyone, like it should be, right? So this concept was developed only 10 years ago. It's a brand new concept, hardly ever been tested, except in Portland, LA, San Francisco. And my concern with this is, it's a brand new concept, and if you look at those communities, it's attached to an industry that's growing that has a lot of jobs coming in. Now this plan, if you really look at it, a lot of it is tied to the website of missing middle income housing. If you look at society overall, every community that has really grown has always been tied to business and industry for jobs, right? That's ultimately what drives home prices, what drives incomes, restaurants, all that, right? This plan does not fully address the job problem, right? And that's my concern of where the new jobs are going to come for the new additional housing and things of that nature. Now, if you think about it, if housing was just the answer, and if we built houses, the growth would come, Cabrini Green would still be around, and it would be a thriving community. However, it's not. It's gone. It was an experiment, an urban development experiment, much like missing middle income housing is, that we don't know the answer to where it's going to go. Now, we could look at, as Steve mentioned, we have tried this in Orland Park. And if you look at that area, there are a lot of missing lots still there. That was supposed to be a vibrant downtown. I would say it's hardly that. You know, historic downtown Orland Park is pretty much a ghost town. And there's not a lot of people walking around there like probably the dreams in the picture show, right? So with that said, I think we should take a pause on that part of this plan and really think the design, and more importantly, what type of jobs we need to bring here to sustain that type of housing. Because we don't need a San Francisco comprehensive plan in Homer Glen. We don't have missing middle. We are the middle income. We are the middle class of America. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Carol Sazaka, 13831 Cedar.
Carl, thank you for listening to me. I more have a question than I do have a comment. You mentioned early on that you have the drainage problem in Homer Glen. I live along Long Run Creek. You guys have a huge drainage problem in Homer Glen. Okay? What is your plan specifically to solve and to add more drainage in this town with more development? Have you guys thought of this? Have you guys thought of, I understand the village is working on a plan to clean up Long Run Creek. If you guys would like pictures, I can provide you pictures of what I pulled out of Long Run Creek. It would fill this room. Okay? Please think about the people that live here before you start developing and growing. Thank you.
Bruce Laha, 13136 Rado Drive.
Good evening. We moved out here in 1982. Took me 2 years to talk my wife into moving from Oak Lawn. She thought it was the end of the world. But then we love it, so we've stayed here for 38 years. My concern is the property values. We've got high taxes, which already bring our property values down compared to our neighbors in Lamont. We've got high water bills, again, another hit on our property values. You take this mixed-use corridor, 159th, there's some nice $600,000-$700,000 houses that are going to back up to this mixed-use corridor. What is this going to do to their property values then? I see a 30% hit in their equity. I have some concerns. I'm a realtor. I've been doing this for 44 years. I see other neighborhoods. I see what using inferior or less expensive building materials can do to a neighborhood. They're not maintained like our brick homes. I don't want to see it here. That's it.
Wayne O'Connell, 17816 Mars Road.
How you doing? I'm Wayne O'Connell. You guys tell me about telling the truth. Well, listen to the fellow over there with the water problems. The more buildings you put up in hard surfaces, the less drainage you have. It's all about the money. You look on that wall there, it says apartments, multifamily living. What are you doing? Shine here? We moved here for the open spaces. And guess what? The police are getting defunded because your election was stolen. And then you're going to have more people coming in there that ain't going to be getting no bail, that are going to be robbing you. And then affordable housing. Who's paying for that? My taxes? Everybody's taxes here. So what? We can live in a village that we don't want to live in. We moved here because it's horse country. We moved here to get away from everything you're trying to shove down our throats. And you know what, too? It's all about the money, and no disrespect. I'm assuming all of you are upright. But you forced me to tell the truth. Back in the 90s, I had some property with my family. I'm a plant engineer, I know numbers. I had a deal worked out with an envelope for the trustees of Orland. I could have got anything I wanted done. Gallagher and Henry across here, okay? I don't want to build in there. I love my place the way it is. You keep building stuff, the water keeps running up, the taxes keep going up, and now you voted for law and order? And what, they're going to defund the police? One last thing, everybody here wearing a mask, go look up on OSHA. That mask is a dust mask. The virus is fake virus, 0.1% is 300,000. Okay? This fake virus is like a Volkswagen going through a hangar. If you're wearing a mask on a submarine, that's a screen door. We better wake up. I was in D.C. When all you folks see the lies on TV, they let everybody in there. I was there. Okay? I'm sick of all this shining and BS. We had enough. Go to the ghetto, wherever you want. Okay? You're in La La Land, you're Kool-Aid freaking drinkers, and we had enough. We're gonna blow up. Take your bullshit and go somewhere else. And I'm staying.
Thank you.
He's right though.
The hell with all these assholes, wake up.
Trustee Lobster, 14868.
1,000%. Thank you. I'll tell you what, dude, if I saw you laying down, I'd be right on top of them, not disabled. You guys are fucking great.
And I have to be the one to follow that. I'm sorry, I won't be as entertaining. I'm Christine Oxer, and I have a horse farm on 143rd Street, 31 acres over there. I've known this area since the 60s, and the open space, horse land, and that's what I have right now. In the comprehensive plan, I understand that my property, which is agricultural right now, is being scrutinized to be changed to a different type of zoning where I could have acre to less than an acre plots of land. I don't want my legacy, I'm 67 years old, I don't want my legacy to be that someone's going to come in and put a zillion little houses in there. I've been trying to fight 143rd because they're going to widen that. And now if they potentially, in the comprehensive plan where my property, I guess, is, I don't know if that's going to change my taxes either, change the zoning on it, I guess this will legitimize the 143rd widening. Now, other people have talked about the comprehensive plan where they're doing mixed usage and density. If you take 143rd and widen that, now you've given everybody a superstructure highway. If they are going to be robbing and doing whatever that some people say that they may or may not do, but now from wherever they're doing it, Orland Park to 355, it's going to be very easy for them to get there. But the bottom line is, I came to Homer Glen from Burr Ridge, where we had open space. We were on 5 acres. My mother and I were very proud of the fact that we came to Homer Glen, and there was a comprehensive plan at that point to keep open space, horse country, and not to mention all the different people that have come from different areas of Chicago. I've talked to a lot of people along 143rd Street in these little areas, these little streets that kind of shoot off of 143rd, that they've purchased property. And they've got houses that aren't, all brick and fancy, but they've got a little farmhouse like mine that's 170 years old, and they've rehabbed these houses, and they're proud of them with their kids. And they have animals on their property. These are the people that you want. They're on 2, 3, 4 acre, 5 acre parcels. These are the people that you want because they're invested in this community, and they want to stay here. And they're very nervous of the fact that everything is going to widen, and you're going to have all this, it's going to change the whole flavor of the area. So I'm hoping that, I am not on board. I was not even notified that my property was being considered to be changed in zoning. I was notified by somebody because being that I'm a horse farm with animals, my focus is working with my abused and rescued animals, and I'm not online finding out what's going on when the next Starbucks is going to be built just down the street, because I'm hoping that everybody in the village and on the board is doing the right thing and keeping the flavor of the open spaces, more of the country flavor. Remember, people, once it's gone, it's gone. You cannot change it.
Russell Mack, 13911 West 167th Street.
DJ, did you get the PDF file that I sent to you? Pretty late.
Yeah, I copied it over.
I had a USB stick. Who has the computer that runs the screen?
We're not going to do presentations, but if you have something that you'd like to share.
I'll let him do it. It's just a PDF. It'll just make it so much easier because the people here can see, and it'll probably make things go faster too. Can you just stick it in there? Thank you. It's the only file on the directory. It's the only PDF.
I think it popped up as drive.
Is that the maps?
No, it should be right on the. Well, why don't you go to maps? Improvise. And if you could open the very top file.
This one?
Yeah, that has a map. I showed this at the last meeting. So I just talked to that.
Hang on, Russ.
Thank you. This proposed comprehensive plan update should not move forward. Number one, the proposed plan is a significant departure from the current plan and it represents a 180-degree direction change for the village of Homer Glen. Number two, a major change in the direction of a community, such as this proposed plan, can only be done with a significant amount of support from its residents, i.e. a majority. Three, broad community support for the drastic changes contained in this plan does not exist. And four, although the Plan Commission, you folks, do not set policy for the village, you do have an obligation to act in the best interest of residents, and therefore you cannot move forward with this plan with good conscience. The residential development philosophy of the existing comprehensive plan is defined by a vision. It states that on page 12 that residential areas in Homer Glen are to be defined as primarily low-density single-family with large lots. The proposed comprehensive plan on pages 46 and 48 and others define Homer Glen based on comparisons with our neighbors. We've identified ourselves as being different from our neighbors and other suburbs, but this will never be realized if we use neighboring communities as the yardstick with which to compare our village. This method is a roadmap to assimilating our village to the typical sprawling suburban model. The landings plan, which is shown in on the screen here, I've modified this plan to show a few things. Number one, the proposed plan reclassifies a very large portion of the village, approximately 500 acres, to a higher residential density category. All of the dark squares that you see, all the dark properties that you see have been increased in density as compared to the existing comprehensive plan. In addition to this increase, the rules are also changing. The categories of the different single-family residential uses are changing. Single-family rural, which is 2.5 acres and larger, will now be 1 acre and larger. Single-family moderate density, which represents a massive 1,000 or more acres of the village, will now be 1/2 acre or less. And there's also language in the proposed plan about reducing minimum lot sizes for conservation design developments. The changes for residential land use in the proposed plan represent a significant shift towards the type of high density and urban sprawl seen in many of our neighboring communities. Multifamily. The existing plan places significant limits on multifamily housing. It states that a limited amount of new high-quality multifamily housing in selected locations is allowable. The proposed plan creates a massive, approximately 1,200-acre mixed-use corridor in which any landowner will have grounds to petition for multi-use residential development. Now, I can understand that in some cases, multifamily can be attractive and it can be appropriate. And commercial development is certainly an important thing. But the ambiguity of the mixed-use zone that's proposed, combined with the sheer number of acres involved, means that there's no circuit breaker to limit the amount of multifamily housing that ends up in these approximate 1,200 acres. There is an existing process called the planned unit development by which multifamily housing can be incorporated into commercial developments. This is done on a case-by-case basis and provides the means for the village to protect itself from uncontrolled development. It is not a theoretical process. It has been used by past administrations to successfully bring projects into open time. Rural character and environmental areas.
You have 30 seconds, Russ.
Okay. The existing plan reflects the importance of large lot residential areas and the image and character within the village. The proposed plan completely eliminates single-family rural categories from the land use map, reducing the minimum lot size for over 900 acres from 2.5 acres down to 1 acre. Eliminating these rural residential areas and reducing the minimum lot size to 1 acre will undermine the sustainable plan that's currently in place for the bucolic rural areas of Homer Glen that are characterized by large lots and often modest houses, and will slowly destroy these areas as the land is subdivided to maximize profit and sold over time. Community engagement, I just have basically this last page and then just a summary.
Actually, your time is up. We gave you an extra 3 minutes to set up, and we've also given this in previous. This actual presentation was given in November, so yeah, we've already had this on record.
This is not the same as that I gave you. It is certainly not. It's got additional stuff. You see the map that I prepared.
I didn't use all my 5 minutes. You can have my.
Anyone who speaks out can leave. This is a public hearing for 5 minutes. Please. Dennis Schute, 14021 West Dublin.
You did a nice job.
Hello, everyone. I'm here for 2 reasons. One is I wanted to support Matt on the validity of his survey, or at least not dismissing it. Giving it, at least reviewing it and evaluating it. I actually have expertise in this area. I have a PhD in this area, and so I think we owe it to at least entertain what he has to say about this survey. I took the survey, and I think it more accurately reflects what we're trying to assess and measure about perceptions of what this plan is to do or not do. That is one thing. The second thing is, for some of the things I've heard today, obviously I don't know exactly what the plan is for cutting down trees, but I can guarantee you if you do that, you're going to increase your stormwater drainage problem. I'm also concerned about the taxes and the overcrowding. I sure as heck don't want to live in an Orland Park kind of environment, and I will move, and I can guarantee you the amount of money I spend in Homer Glen, you will miss it. And I will be gone, and the people that you bring in, who will live in these smaller places, will most likely, from a statistical standpoint, likely not spend the amount of money that I spend. And I would think that the same goes for a lot of other people in this village. So I would be careful about like how you're assessing this. And I was here about over a year ago, and I still don't understand your economic model. I have no God's idea how what you're saying you're going to do is going to generate municipal revenue or do any of the things that you're saying it's going to. So if somebody can show me what that model looks like, that it's justified with empirical data, then I'll buy into it. But I haven't seen it or heard it, and I asked for it like 14 months ago. Thank you.
Louis, 14021 West Dublin Drive.
Hi, my name's Chad. I wasn't planning on talking today, but we have lived in Homer Glen for well over a decade. Now, I've lived in my life. I've lived in inner city Chicago. I've lived in Tinley. I've lived in Oak Lawn, hometown, and we fell in love with Homer Glen because Homer Glen's not like any of them. We say we want growth. We do not need low income to get growth in Homer Glen. I hope we do not make these changes. I don't see anything positive from these changes. Homer Glen's unique for all the right reasons. We don't want to be Lockport. We don't want to be Orland Park. We want to be Homer Glen. Homer Glen is gorgeous. It's a gorgeous area. So turning it into every other city, we lose who we are in this city. So I personally do not want to see this happen. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Jennifer Cantorino, 15353 Weather Vane, maybe?
I am a 12-year resident in Homer Glen. Before that, I grew up on the south side of Chicago and lived there for 33 years. However, I'm here to speak as a resident tonight. I'm here to speak on behalf of my neighbors and the other residents who have the same exact feelings that I do about your comprehensive plan. I do not want rezoning for the missing middle, or as your comprehensive plan quote-unquote clarifies, a typology of duplex, triplex, quadplex, and is further described as being allowed to be built in new development, including townhomes or integrated and a mixed-use development. Missing middle is called out in the sub-area plans and on the future land use plan is being supported in a single-family moderate land use. Now, I have heard the village board members and employees have stated on social media and in tonight's meeting that this is just a plan. It's basically in progress. Whether it is or not, the zoning will allow for it at some point, and that is not what I want, or a majority of Homer Glen residents. High-density population that you desire to bring into our sleepy, quiet community will have dire consequences. It will affect every single one of us that lives here. Homer Glen is a community of long-standing residents, pay very high taxes and very high water bills for a number of reasons. It's not that they or I do not want progress for our community. We want it to be well planned out, and specifically with our needs and our voices to be taken into consideration. With the comprehensive survey that went out, Savoy Consulting Agency stated that over 1,400 voices from our residents are basically irrelevant, and the exact word was invalid. Homer Glen residents and voters are not invalid. We pay taxes and we live here. We all have a right to voice our opinions. Population boom is not what we need during a time of COVID and a financial crisis. Our schools are overcrowded with no plans to build new ones. Our community and our infrastructure are not equipped for high-density housing. The more you build, the more flooding we will have. And how many people said that tonight? The more you build, the more we lose the rural charm and the atmosphere that people chose to buy their homes and live here. That's why I moved here from the city. I didn't want to live in Orland Park, and I didn't want to be surrounded by all the problems, the congestion, and the traffic that they have. Where is the nature and harmony? We do not have our own police department, no offense, Lieutenant Holly. We do. We have an increase in crime in Homer Glen. How do you plan to handle that? For the residents who pay taxes on the average of anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 a year for residential property, what amenities do we have? Nothing. Our village provides zero services for our children, our seniors, our handicapped, our special needs, and our veterans. If you provide nothing for us now, how do you plan to provide for a high-density population boom? Above all, where's the transparency in the multi-structure sports complex for traveling teams, not for residents? It's going to go right in that farm across the street. And don't forget, you wanted to bring in hotels and restaurants to go with it. I and others like me should not have to point out what our village lacks to provide for its residents, its constituency. We should not have to attend a meeting and beg for consideration. The village needs to be more accountable to its residents. There needs to be more thought and effort put into planning, building, in this community. Residents' voices need to be taken into consideration. This is a democracy, or isn't it? The right thing to do by our community would be to work harder, to be transparent, make the information available, spend the money on mailers for those who are not on social media, or check your website. Send out surveys. Prove to us how this kind of comprehensive plan actually works for us and improves our livelihood in Homer Glen. Otherwise, it's just you voting for what you want, not me, not them, and voters do not like that. Thank you for your time.
My comments were covered very well.
Ken March, 13721 Cave Creek. Walter Bratcher, 17611 House. Ron Pasco, 12539 West Hampshire. Kathleen Konecki, 13325 West 157. Doris Etzel? Oh, sorry.
It's Kathleen.
Okay, good evening. I won't need my whole 5 minutes. I just have a couple quick points to make. I do think, with all due respect, that in staff's presentation this evening, they downplayed the significance of adopting a plan like this. They were saying, well, just because it says this doesn't mean. It kind of does, because if a developer comes in with a proposal that is consistent with your plan, once it's adopted, and you turn them down, you are going to place them in court, and you will be in an uphill battle to turn this project down. Adopting this plan does cast certain things in stone. I think you have, with all due respect, I think you've overemphasized, the importance of the survey you sent out to a selected, I forget the number, and 33% of them responded, and then you went through the litany of events where you've been there taking public input. That's all great. But this is a major change to this community, and I don't think it's fair to just rely on a little, basically, I'm sorry, compared to the number of people in this community, you have talked to very few. A change of this scale requires either a referendum or a survey sent to every individual home. You need to hear from everybody. Number 3, I'm one of the people who thought the idea of a downtown sounded pretty nifty, and I do. And I think I answered that way in the survey, but in our survey, no one said to get to downtown we have to do a whole corridor of basically multifamily. You make me aware of that, my answer on your downtown is no. So I think when you do these surveys and take input, you have to make sure people understand some of these terms. Downtown sounds lovely, but I'm wondering how many people who told you they wanted downtown understand or understood what it meant in terms of committing to multifamily. Because I think if you made that clear, your support for the downtown as you want to go about it would dissipate. It wouldn't be there. Number 5, this community's been doing pretty darn good. They committed to people in soliciting support for the corporation, no increase in the real estate tax. No one believed they'd do it, they'd keep their word. 20 years, they kept their word. And now, this board went through with an increase in tax. I think there's some interest even in trying to undo that. But my point is that this community has done well. We have a good commercial. We have a Myers, we have a Jewel, we have a Home Depot, we have a Menard. We have good businesses, and they're thriving. We're doing well in this town. I don't know that we need to be aggressive and sell out our soul and bring in multifamily to try and get more commercial, blah, blah, blah. That's the same downward spiral that various communities around us have followed. And we don't want to be like those communities. We made that, the people of this town made that clear in their incorporation. That's one of the things that bothered me as I was listening to staff presentation again. They were giving like, here's the objection raised and here's the answer. I mean, I'm sorry, but if that's the road we're going to go, we're just going to go the same road as every other community. We don't want to do that. And I'm not sure you understand. That gentleman that you cut off, granted you gave him 5 minutes, that's a generous amount of time. I recognize that, but that was a former trustee, a trustee who came in after incorporation to shepherd this village. He knows what he's talking about, and he has a great deal of support of this community, and he spotted things in your new plan that the rest of us didn't. You have a lot of changes that weren't apparent, and those changes came about in the definitions. They're kind of like hidden. And he was uncovering it. I thought he did an excellent job. That was Russ. He came up here to talk, didn't even identify himself as a former trustee. He should have, because he knows what he was talking about. And frankly, I, for one, wanted you to allow him to finish his presentation, because he's more informed than the rest of us. And he was talking good stuff.
Second, 13462 West 167th Street.
That's Doris Hale.
Hale.
Yes.
Found it.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. In all meetings that I've attended, I've heard, Homer Glen needs to retain its identity as a community in harmony with nature, and I think that is the epicenter of all of our concern. In 2011, Homer Glen was given a great award by the IDSA, the International Dark Sky Association. And the Dark Sky Association was recognizing the fact that we were limiting our lighting, we were choosing proper lighting, and we were allowing people to enjoy our night sky without the effects of light pollution that we see in Orland Park, Vermont, New Lenox, and other places of high density residency. So I think that the most alarming thing that I heard so far was the plan to increase vertical mixed use along the corridor. We already have lighting issues there. We have, as somebody pointed out, we have the Myers and other big box stores, and their lighting is already introducing pollution into our sky. That I don't appreciate, but I understand the need for safety in our parking lots, especially in those big box stores that are attracting people that are here to do untoward things and stealing and threaten people in the area. So I am hoping that in the plans that you have, that we remember that harmony with nature, and especially when we're thinking about increasing the population of this community and keeping our identity with international dark sky. Thank you very much.
Ma'am?
We've heard nothing for this evening, but I just want to tell you, we moved here about 18 years ago. We lived in Beverly. Prior to that, we lived around Midway Airport. We lived in Orland, all the surrounding areas. Bingo, Homer Glen. Open spaces, nice community, low density, wonderful. Now you want to starve the community. I worked in Cabrini Green. I know what it's like when people don't have a dog in a race. They could care less about the property. Rental property, it ain't mine, Phil. You know, I can move tomorrow. Apartments should be off the books. There should be no rental units out here. You mentioned how things change from when you start working to you retire. Well, I did that. We started in a 4-room walk-up for like $75 a month. We saved our money, saved our pennies, were able to buy a house, another house, and then finally move out here, and it's like our dream house. You continue down this pathway, Indiana looks real good. We're paying $12 grand, over $12 grand a year in taxes, much more than our mortgage now. And we get nothing. We pay our garbage pickup. At least in Chicago, they picked up our garbage. One of the reasons we moved out here, we had a young child. He couldn't go to public school, so we paid for parochial school, which is fine. We figured, okay, offset taxes, tuition, it's a draw. Now he's out of school board, or the schools were great. We go down this road, like I say, Indiana looks good. No reason to stay. Don't scar the community. Keep it like it is, please. Thank you.
The last one that signed up today, before we go to the Zoom calls, Joe Johnson. 14132 Cecilio. Nope. Matt, we can go to the Zoom calls.
Sure. I think in my time, I was the first one.
Okay.
Whoa.
I just wanted a little time to think.
Matthew Tartella, 131 Sage Court.
Yeah.
Yeah, please come on up.
Okay. I'm relatively new to the area. I've only been living here about a year. And I love the community because the people love the community. That's why I moved here. The biggest thing when I moved here was the open spaces, the nature. There were no apartments. I moved from Lyons, Illinois. I lived in an apartment there. I rented there to be able to come here. I saw what the neighborhoods look like that. I saw what multifamily does to neighborhoods. I want to, I'm in no way am I against single family. I just don't like multifamily use or mixed use. I think use of time to, instead of thinking about multifamily mixed use, is lowering our water bills, lowering our taxes, making a school that I've heard about, and that's why I wanted to move here, is there were rumors about new schools, new high schools. I think that's where focus should be rather than bringing more people in, giving this community a better place to live.
Matrix Partners, you're now allowed to talk. I believe you're muted if you'd like to address the Plan Commission.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, my name is Don Kamala. The board received, the trustees received a letter from me today, so I won't repeat the comments that I made. I'm sure that it will be part of the public record for the people of the community to review. And again, I recognize that maybe not all of my facts were correct, but in general, I think the overview of what I presented has been consistently presented by, I would say, the people who have come before me, who have all done an excellent job. And I wish I could add anything significant to what everyone said. They were so eloquent and focused. So the only thing I would like to say in summary, and again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, is that I'd like to compliment the people who made the presentation on this new plan. I think it presented their vision very clearly. I think it presented their vision in a way that I would expect any presentation of such magnitude to take. I think the biggest failure of this whole presentation this evening was a significant lack of appreciation of who as you call them, the stakeholders in this program are. I think the first presenter mentioned very briefly, I don't even know if they mentioned the people who live in the community, but it was very clear that the person mentioned the brokers, the landowners, the developers, okay, all of them have a stake in the community. Well, if you listen to the people who spoke today, and you listen to the number of years that they spent in this community, investing in this community, paying taxes in this community, developing relationships in the community, they're the ones who have the stake. They are the number one stakeholder. Everything else becomes secondary. And I think as we look at this plan, I personally believe, and I think everyone in the audience would agree with me, that the people who presented the plan did not make a case as to why this will benefit the people who live here today, who have spent 10, 15, 20, 30 years or more in this great community. All they talk about is change, which destroys the DNA of this entire village, because the DNA of this village is not the vision that these developers have. And I'm sure their goal is to make money and to develop this property and leave. And with all due respect, when I hear someone who spent 18 months living in this community trying to propose to me that this plan is a positive for the residents of this community, I would like to say you haven't lived here long enough to be able to make that statement. So for all of you who are there, I wish I could be there. I'm a little bit concerned about the COVID, but I wish I was there in person to present so you could all see who I am and what I believe in. But you hear what I believe in, and I think all of you who took the time to present tonight did an excellent job. And I think that you did more than convince me, since I was already convinced. But I think, getting back to one person's statement about it's the community that makes this decision. They're the ones who live here, who pay your taxes, who really develop what Homer Glen is today, and their voices have to be heard. And a survey of everybody in this community should take place, because I'm sure it will reflect the recent monkey survey that I took, which says that 90% plus of the people in this community do not want this plan to go forward. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
All right, Mr. Ryan Magiglia, you can now speak.
Yeah, thanks for letting me speak. My property is impacted by this plan. I was never made aware of that until someone notified me that was looking at the overhead view of the map in the 116-page plan. And today, I think your parcel is impacted by that. So my property is currently zoned A1 agricultural. My primary residence, I live there, I farm out south on the property. It's proposed to be changed to mixed use. I was never made aware of that. You figure that you get some kind of communication regarding the change. That never was in my mailbox. There was never any communication. I just don't know what the difference is between the two. Going from A1 ag to mixed use and like how that impacts the farming. And I just don't understand the proximity. So my property is surrounded by residential properties currently. So going from one to the other, and again, I don't know if this is like a Q&A, I'm just going to make some statements here, but I don't see the angle or the benefit at all. My whole south lot of my property is Doctor Road. There's 5 or 6 properties that touch my lot, and then the north side is another custom new construction home. So I don't, wedged in between there, I think it should stay agricultural because it provides a break if there's a farm. To change it to mixed use, I just don't understand it at all. Again, I'm not sure this is a Q&A, but that was just my concern that, I was never notified that my property could change. I mean, that impacts a lot of things downstream, lending, assessments, property taxes, etc. For that just to be swiftly changed, that doesn't seem right, I guess, was my biggest concern. But yeah, just in my little world, my little lot, that's really what I was concerned about. Again, not being notified of the potential change, besides someone telling me that, hey, I think you're part of this whole rezoning thing. So that's all I have to say, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and it's good to see everyone come out and kind of voice their opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry, I think it would be a good idea to take a moment just to clarify, because that's the couple times that's come up, what the comprehensive plan zoning areas mean versus current zoning and how that changes, or the planning wants to do that too?
Yeah, you want me to do it? You can, you want to.
Well, you can answer it. So as Kerry mentioned, the plan sets up the policies and the vision for the community, not necessarily rezoning to specific parcels. So just taking the situation from the Zoom call, this specific property is being shown, changing from agricultural to mixed use type land use. It's a land use change, not a zoning change. So it's kind of bringing the concept for the corridor eventually to be, kind of use mixed use concepts when they come in for a planned unit development. It doesn't change the underlying zoning as of now. It's the vision for the future for the next 5-10 years, whatever happens with the property. This allows the plan commission to take a look at the concept as a planned unit development, at which point the property owners would be notified. So this is a vision for the corridor as a policy, not necessarily rezoning to specific properties.
And I think from our standpoint of plan commissioners, we use the comprehensive plan as kind of an overview of the direction of an area. So if you have a piece of property and you own it for 150 years and you just live on it, it doesn't change. Nothing happens. If someone buys a parcel, let's say 100 acres, and they want to put mixed use on it, but it's not in the comprehensive plan, it's an uphill battle to get that changed. If it's zoned as a state, it typically, in the comprehensive plan, it's a state, like most of our town is in the farm areas, the corridors, it won't change. The idea is, and it can change as a part of a PUD, but we look at the comprehensive plan and we look at the zoning and the character on a case-by-case basis with the village board's direction and administration's help to essentially not change things drastically. This is just a broad brush stroke of if there's going to be changes, if there's going to be development, this gives us the ability to control where the best space to be to provide economic change, development, and growth in our community, but controlled growth. And so I just wanted to clarify that. This isn't a broad stroke change of the zoning of the entire town. We'll talk about this a little bit in our discussion, but this comprehensive plan is more strict than the 2005 plan in 3 or 4 areas very easily. And that's why we're bringing it today. So thank you for that. Matt, back to you.
That was it for residents on the Zoom call that wish to verbally address the Plan Commission. However, we have received a few written comments. I'll start with Mark Gowron's comment.
Yeah, you can, those, if we actually requesting to be entered into the public record, we got over a dozen emails.
Yeah, anything that's written, we can just add to the public record. I haven't seen a lot of new stuff. There was a lot of good comments that came over the last couple weeks to us through staff and to us directly that will all be a part of public record. We'll have it all posted online. A lot of comments will still be addressed. But if the Zoom call texts can be added to public record, we can go to discussion.
Sure. And also for the presentation tonight, we're going to post it on the website too, just so people can look at what we presented tonight.
Thank you.
A few of those residents have now wished to speak. Mark, you're able to speak now. Are you there, Mark?
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you guys. Yeah, I know I sent it in writing, but I could speak to it quickly here. I mean, I was just very impressed by all the speakers tonight. I mean, I think you heard loud and clear what their issues are. Don't need to repeat those. The one new one I heard was about the benefits of this plan. I don't think that was in the 116 pages. That would probably be a great addition. So my concerns are about process. I'm a process guy in my whole career in business. So the 116-page plan was published in November of 2020. So we had the public hearing, we got lots of input then, very similar to tonight, although I think tonight it was amplified. I'll give you credit, you documented all of the comments and you did provide written responses. So you packaged them up and we got all that on December 30th to read over our New Year's Eve celebration. We had 8 days to absorb it all. Now on January 7th, here's the problem. You want to take a vote on the plan. So here's the process problem. You got a lot of feedback then, and you got a lot of feedback now. I'm asking if you would please take that feedback and change the 116-page plan. I don't know what it'll turn out to be on the 20, 99 days, I don't know. But incorporate the changes that you had on the one slide. I think that's great progress. It's called potential revisions to the plan. But make them to the plan and then republish it to us, so that we, the residents, have a chance to read it over. At least give us another couple weeks. So I just urge you, please postpone the vote. Let's get it done right. Update the plan, post it again, and then we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
And one more person wishing to speak. Mr. Orkowski, you're now unmuted.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time very much. My name is Matt Ochowski. I'm appearing in front of you by way of Zoom with regard to just a technical correction on 159th Street. I'm a consultant to the Franciscan Sisters who operate Marion Village Senior Living Community at 15624 Marion Drive in Homer, Glen. The technical correction is we're objecting to the designation for the vacant land on 159th Street, about 20 acres at the front, as suggested in this plan in Chapter 5, designated as healthcare versus our neighbor's designation of mixed use. In that prior plan, comprehensive plan, it was mixed use. We strongly suggest that it be mixed use going forward as well. And we appreciate you taking the time to make that change accordingly in the detail. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
That is it for Zoom attendees.
We had one in the back. If you could come up front and give your name and address, and then be sworn in if you haven't been sworn in.
Chetanati, 16135 South Fennel Court, Homer, a 28-year resident and a retired police officer. I had some thoughts about what I was going to say when I came up here initially, but I think I'm going to change a little bit.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Have you been sworn in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Raised my hand, but everybody didn't see me in the back. I guess I was
Okay.
sorry about that. I am a little concerned about the apartment scenario. I came from a town that was very well integrated. We put apartments, we had Section 8 houses up the wazoo. Unfortunately, those apartment buildings right now have been vacant for the last 5 years. It kind of failed miserably. But we did have to add more police officers when they were running. And we still have more police officers in our department right left. So you have to take in mind the sheriff is doing a phenomenal job. And my concern is by putting this type of housing into play, we are putting our law enforcement guys in jeopardy with more instances of things that could happen. And that bothers the hell out of me. I really think, I know we're trying to advance here, but it just seems like I saw what happened last month when we got the public works thing shoved down us and the new taxes for that. And if I wanted to be in the kingdom of Orland Park, I would have moved there. But I'm in Homer, Glen, and that's where I'd like to stay and I'd like to retire. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I make a motion to close the public hearing? Sure, please.
I thought the last time on email was going to be read, and they weren't this time around, so I just assumed that
The emails will be entered in the public record.
Have you read them before?
Absolutely.
The conversations?
Yes.
Are you
Just
sworn
like
in? Are you sworn in?
I do. Let's speed this up.
Can I have your name and address?
Yeah, Matt Kane, 16 Free Road, Albert Court.
And sir, can I can you just hold your hand and say, do you sure tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Not even anything.
I just want to read the note that I sent because I think it's, I put together a survey, one survey, you've heard about it, where 1,500 people have responded to it at this point. And the response from the consultant wanted to essentially discredit that. And I know that was mentioned tonight. But he wrote almost 1,000 words, so I wanted to respond to that here publicly. Members of the Planning Commission, trustees, and mayor, I've read the response from the Constable Court Consultancy regarding the comprehensive plan survey I initiated.
First, let me say that I didn't initiate this survey to be a nuisance, to point fingers, or for any financial gain. I initiated this survey to protect our community and to ensure that the resident voices of Homer Glen are heard. The response was amazing, both in terms of size and conviction. 1,500 plus people responded, with 96% agreeing that we need to preserve our community's character and maintain high building standards and limited density. It's extremely disappointing that the consultant's response was to delegitimize the survey and the voices within it. The consultant referred to a survey from NCR called the National Citizen Survey, and while this survey was portrayed as being sent to a representative demographic in 1,500 households, the survey only received 492 complete responses. So my survey is now 3 times as many people. Just 4 questions of the NCR survey referenced housing. That's what this is all about, housing. Yet the consultant claimed our survey had a very limited range of narrowly focused, misleading questions. In the NCR survey, one question asked about the availability of housing options. In the consultant's response, he claimed that 65% of respondents desired more housing options. That is incorrect. In actuality, the NCR survey revealed that 65% of respondents feel positive about the variety of housing options in Homer Glen. And they compare these to communities all over the nation in Illinois. And this ranks 73rd of 257 communities nationwide, similar to communities in Illinois. So the idea that everybody wants all of these new different housing options is really not present in that survey. The NCR question is actually difficult to interpret, as nowhere does it say what the 41 respondents who marked poor thought was actually missing. What is not confusing is our question: do you support triplexes and quadplexes for future development? 96% of the respondents said no. Both the question and the answer are very clear. In contrast, the consultant suggested a better way of asking this would be to mislead the responder with a narrative about the young families, households without children, or seniors that will move into these quadplexes. That is the definition of a leading question, and the buyers or renters of these units are impossible to know. And I will just say, I know you guys talked about misinformation, and a lot of it has been about apartments. For me, an apartment, it's really just rental or own. In reality, if you put a quadplex up and it ends up being rental, it's as good as an apartment to me. Additionally, the consultant implied that the residents contradicted themselves because 65% supported a downtown area, while only 21% supported a mixed-use corridor. This is especially troubling that the consultant doesn't recognize that these 2 options are very different. A mixed-use corridor along 159th Street might have the feel of parts of LaGrange Road or Route 30, while downtown is the feel of Frankfurt. This was confirmed in the sub-area focus groups, where the residents supported the Glen Town Center of Glenview, but disliked a long stretch of fast food and strip malls in Addison. Lastly, our survey mentioned lower quality standards not because the plan specifically said this, but because the last development that was approved, the Square Goodings Grove, included a list of variances, including a lack of full first floor brick, which somebody here tonight said was required. Additionally, the developer, when they advertised this great product, said the quality was indicative of a base price of $325,000 to $350,000. And is currently offering 4 buildable plans that average $270,000, some below $250,000. The response to the first plan commission meeting is severely inadequate, mainly including corrections to typos and statements to invalidate the opinions of the residents. I know a lot of work went into this plan, and I believe we should see it through to completion. However, the final version needs to protect the unique character of Homer Glen. Please, please, please bring the residents back into this process. That's it.
can I make a motion, or have someone make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion.
Public hearing motion made by Commissioner Foley. Have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Stanley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is closed. Commissioners, we have a couple topics, couple different directions that we can go in discussing this. First, we can take a break if needed. We have the topics, discussion topics and corrections.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you may want to announce that you're not going to vote on it tonight, just discuss and table.
Yeah, tonight we are not going to make a vote on this. We're going to do a discussion, which will probably continue at a later hearing if we don't finish our discussion tonight. And then the hope is for staff to revise, have the consultant work with the consultant and revise the plan as was talked on the Zoom call. So we have something definitive that we can read, look over, digest, before we vote on it. So the vote won't be tonight. We will have discussion from the Plan Commission, and then we will continue it to an upcoming hearing, and at that point, we'll be voting on the comprehensive plan. Commissioners.
What's the date of that vote?
Brian asked what the date of the vote was.
We don't know. We have to wait till we get the things back in order, have our discussion, watch the village's website, watch My Homer Glen website that has the list of all these changes, all the meetings, all the minutes.
Get up and stretch.
Yeah, we're going to take a 5-minute break. As representative of the trustees, we had talked briefly that there may be some direction change. Our goal is to not send it to the updated comprehensive plan to you and us be missing some directional changes that's going to throw it right back to us. We want to give you a plan that's very relevant, very close to being what you want as representative of the trustees and what
Decided that we are in apartments. No one's decided we're going to do. On 159th between Parker and Bell Road, and unfortunately, Mayor Daley at that time didn't like he had houses, he had condos, he had townhouses, I think they had duplexes, and because that's what people were asking for even back then, they turned it down. Mr. Gallagher took him to court, he won, and he actually got a lot more than what he was asking for in the first place. So we don't have the power. You know, I understand that everyone came out here because it is wide open and new. And I like it a lot too. But the only option is, at the end of the day, if you don't want anything built here, someone cut a check. Give it to the landowner. You can do whatever the hell you want at that point. So my people, my board, and myself want to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. There's a lot in there that is wrong, and we do need to change it. So we're going to bring it back to us, and we are going to research it, and I'd like to research it with you guys at the same time, because at the end of the day, you guys got the hardest job in the world, because you're getting beat up. Most of the time, everyone that's coming in here is going to beat you up because they don't want to do what you want to do for this village. But if you really look at everything that has been done in this village, it's been done right. We don't have a lot of problems. Everything that came in here before we became Homer Glen, we don't have any control over. So we want to look at this, make sure this is what is needed. And then when we figure out what we think it is, then you bring the people back in and tell them, here, now this is what we're looking for. This is what we're looking here. This is what we're looking here. So that they're on the same page with us.
But the way it is right now with what happened tonight, I mean, none of it made any sense. There a couple people saying that they changed the land away from agriculture. You can't do that. It's got to come before the ordinance, it's got to come before the zoning. I don't know. And then as for the apartments, all it was a guy came to the village probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and said he would like to build some apartments. So bring the stuff that you have. Because if you look at the 2005 land study, that's in there. They can do the multifamily, they can do the apartments. So all we have to do is we have to address it to where the stuff that doesn't belong there comes out of it. And the stuff that we're in question of, that's when we discuss it. And like I said, I like it with the planning commission too. I mean, it's open to the public at that time, we can't talk, but they can come in here and see what we are doing. We all want to make this right. I mean, I think almost 100% of the people that came out to this village for what it was. We are in control of the growth. I mean, we can put the restrictions out there. We can go to all brick, but you know, when you take a look at some of these houses that are in the wooded area, that aren't brick, they're wood, they're glass, they're gorgeous. I don't know if I want to live in a glass house, but they're very nice houses. So sometimes, and I don't mean to go after any individual, but we're not elitists here. You know, not everyone's a millionaire. You know, you've got a lot of people that live Pebble Creek. You've got Derby Hills. You've got so many houses up here. So what are we saying? Where they're living, they live in the slum? I don't think that that is the pace of our village. And that's not what I think people believe. I love that we have people from every class. So we will take it from you, and then we will go over with it. Like I said, we just got to make sure that we can do it. It would be an open meeting, but I'm sure we can. And I don't think that this thing will be ready for anything for about 5, 6, 7 months. Who knows? Could be next year. Because you also have to have a life, especially if it's COVID.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Hey, Mayor, you were saying, I don't even say where, when somebody wanted to build apartments, can you say where, what area they wanted to build it?
What they wanted to build them is basically behind, it's basically across the street here. It's right next to Twin Lakes. So if you take Twin Lakes, where Sitco is, I think it is now, and you go west, and you finally get up to,
It's on the map.
but yeah, there's two landowners there. One's got 140, 150 acres, and then the other one has like 40 acres.
And what happened with it? It didn't work out, or?
They were trying to get out of businesses first. You know, when he first talked to us, he said, I either had a Pete's, I had Mariano's, I had Whole Foods, I had this, I had this, I had this, but then Marlin sucked up everything. So he's still looking to get something, but all those businesses told him, if you're having this, we need roofs. Because if there's nowhere to sell it to, why would I spend the money to open up the grocery store? So we haven't heard from him for over a year and a half. So I mean, the apartments, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing there. Condos, Gallagher built the condos right behind Home Depot. They don't have any problems there. There's no kids in them. And that was my idea when it started coming out, is I want the businesses, and obviously you need the rooftops. And when this guy did talk to us about apartments and then condos and stuff like that, we did a study to see what's a percentage of kids and adults. The ones that are behind Old Big R, I think they had 2 kids in all those apartments. Over by Gallagher's place, it's mostly older people or young married couples. They have to have a place to start out. Well, they pay taxes, not to us, but they pay taxes to the schools, the library, and highway department, and there's no impact on the schools. So the schools are doing a hell of a lot better with money. So I think for all the residents in here, are our taxes high? Yeah, but it's not Homer Glen. It's Illinois. That's the problem. And the only way you can get away from that is you gotta get out of here. But going to Indiana, that's not the idea to go right now, because so many people from Illinois have gone out there, they're having all kinds of problems with schools. Well, guess what? Now they have to build more schools. Guess what? That raises the taxes. So pretty soon, they won't be any different than us. But you can't leave something so vague out there that it's hard to figure out which direction you're going. So, hopefully I answered your question.
Thank you. We're just looking for some direction.
Any one of you, if you need any questions, just let us know. And, I mean, we can get the trustees and everyone together, and we can have them.
Yeah, I think that might be the best use of our time. I mean, we could go one by one and pick up different things. I think it would be more beneficial to do a workshop as our next step to iron out, obviously, the errors. Is there any way that the errors can be incorporated and fixed sooner than later, so we can have a better version of the errors corrected for the workshop?
Yeah, if you agree with the discussion topics here, we can bring in the changes to the workshop meeting. Anything you want to add on based on the public input, you're welcome to add on more today or send us an email in the next few days. We'll add on to the list.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll talk for a little bit, see if we can add anything. If you could put that list back up on the screen, and then I think unless there's if someone really is pressing to just discuss this without going to have a workshop, I think that's a good alternative.
Yeah.
I need to make sure that everybody on the whole group is okay with what that staff has presented so far.
Yes, that's what I'd like to know.
Okay.
At the workshop, could please have Russ's presentation?
Oh, yeah, you can have, I want them here. I want them to, see, here's my biggest issue. Most people who live in the village have no idea what the hell we do.
I know.
They have none. And if they did, all our lives would be a hell of a lot easier. But when you open up a bucket and half of it spews out on you, you're going to have a problem. You're not going to have it. We need to have it to where we can remove some things, agree on some things, or decide what we're going to change. And we didn't do that now. This is too general. Too general.
You really shouldn't, I hate to use the word criticize, because we didn't have this input. We hired a consultant that wrote this from the input we gave him. He didn't do anything wrong. It was...
I know.
Yeah, and a lot of this is best practice for the planning industry. It lines up 100% with the onto 2050 regional planning requirements and desire to make it so all communities, not just Homer Glen, is affordable to the minimum standards that are required by law. But and taking that into account, the plan is still when the town is built out, more than 75% single family house. I mean, there's no getting around that. Our plan right now, even with the giant 159th Street corridor, is a single family residential community.
I agree. But we need to work on it.
Sure.
And like I said, we would be definitely better in working on where instead of just listening to us or us just listening to you, if you get everyone together, for me it's the best thing because you have so many ideas, you have so many things thrown with it you never even thought about. So, and looking at the way things are right now, I don't know if you're going to see a lot of big houses anymore because a lot of people don't want them. The expenses there more than, everything's up, electric, your gas. everything adds up, taxes, and especially when you get someone that are older, which unfortunately I hit that section, but I don't want a big house, I don't want a big lot, I don't want a bunch of grass to cut. You know, I'm 65 right now, the older I get, the less I'm gonna wanna do, and I wanna be able to just sit back and enjoy myself. The house I'm in right now, it's not enjoyment, it's constantly fixing something. So, I think what it is everyone has to understand what it is, and then when we bring the residents back in, let it come out. And from there, we work on it. You know, that's what I just wish they understood. We're not changing it. We're looking to see what could be done to make this village better. All right, I've been up since 3 this morning, I'm going.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, see ya.
So the task at hand, do we have anyone that has any issues with discussion topics on the screen? Anything that we want to add? I want to hear from everybody tonight, at least give a little bit of an update of where you're at, what you're thinking. We can go from left to right, or right to left.
I'll go. Go ahead. Yeah, I mean.
Before we start, can I just ask Matt, I know your input's been important at every level. And Russ, who's out talking to George right now. If you guys could, please stay. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're still here to hear us talk and give our point. And it means a lot to all of us, and it's respectful of the process. I hope you will stay.
I will.
Thank you.
You want me to wait till we can stand?
No, I.
Okay.
That's a long way.
For me personally, I think this is probably one, or for all of us, I should say, this is going to be one of the toughest decisions we have to make with this. Some of the points that were brought up tonight, giving it away, we're not going to get it back. But, progress is coming. At the end of the day, it's coming. Whether it's next week or if it's 20 years, it's going to be here. There's nothing we can do about it. If somebody wants to come in, even under the old administration, and I do remember Gallagher and Henry at 159th Park, it was a big deal, where they wanted to come in and do something, the village said no. It's going to happen. I think if we do it the right way, and again, with the input from everybody in the village, I think that's going to go a long way. I think the more input we have from the residents of the village and us clarifying some stuff right now that is kind of vague, I think it's going to go a long way. I really do. So that's all I got.
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say this is definitely going to be a tough decision. There was a lot of work that was already put into this, and I hate to say, I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be put into it to get to the, to the finish line. I understand, for example, what the mayor did state. You bring in roofs, you bring in the population, the commercial follows. They like to see that. But there's also other alternatives. I mean, in regards to housing, I heard someone mention something in regards to they build, they leave it, they don't care about it, that's it. They go, or they sell it, or whatever it may be. There's other developments. For example, we're looking for people who want to retire that might not be able to afford that house. So if you look at unassisted senior living centers, for example, when you get funding from the government to build those types of developments, that developer has to stick with that. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong, but I think it's for 40 years he has to own that and take care of that property. He can't just sell it or give it away. So there might be some other options to help, bring that additional population. We need to bring commercial that we're really looking for as well. I really got to think much harder in regards to, what additional modifications we need to do to this. But I really think that the potential revisions that we currently have right now, I think we need to take all the comments that we heard this evening, and staff really needs to put that together, answer those questions, and need to see those responses as well before we can really do anything. And that workshop is definitely going to be key. There are some valid points in regards to the surveys that I heard this evening as well, in regards to the amount of people that answered as opposed to even the public one that was done, I think, by Matt. Am I correct? Thank you. So I think bringing public in, maybe even having a workshop, as was mentioned, between trustees, the planning board, even other committees, bringing the public in, but somehow making sure that they know this is happening, so we do get all their input prior. That's all I have right now.
I wrote all this up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I'm going to say, I'm really disappointed we didn't have this kind of turnout when we had our workshop, and the consultant could only work with what we gave them, and you could only work with what we gave them.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. So I hope you don't feel too bad. No, not at all. Okay.
Because I know that the work that we did was great, the community outreach that we did, and, I'll talk about that a little bit more, but, I know that we made our best effort.
Okay.
And I'll talk a little bit more about it. But no, I'm not crying.
Okay. So, I agree with George about Facebook. I wish it wasn't so controversial too, but man, it got a way better response than we did. But
Actually, now
when you asked the question where the people said they really would like a downtown, what they're thinking of is Glen Ellen or LaGrange. Not gonna happen here. So, again, if we wanted, George said, if we wanted to do it, it would have been done already. But let's fix it so it reflects what we really want done. And I got some things here, but I would love to stay in Homerland. But I can't and don't want to afford the price or the taxes of a development like Amberfield. And I don't want a condo. And so that would, you want to call it middle housing or whatever you want to call it, it's not true. That's all I got.
Yep, it's very interesting. You're very honest, I do have some concerns about the multi-family housing along 159th Street. I do. I live there, I'd be affected by it, I believe. But I don't want to say, if you just say they might do it, they might not do it. I just have some concerns about it. That's a major thing. Last time we were talking about this, and John was on Zoom, and I like what he had said at one point during this Zoom call. He said, we should be looking at these cases, this is my opinion, it is, and I agree with it, case by case. Case by case, we should be looking at. I think we should look at different houses, maybe not all brick. You look at some of these other towns, and really mentioned something earlier about different towns have these different houses, beautifully done, just not all brick on the first floor. There might be more options to do. There might be more options to build. And the conservation plan, the amount of open space that should be looked at too. So I do, as I said again, I do have some concerns about the multi-family houses. Dwellings, I don't think that's true. I do. I think that, and I could be wrong. It's my opinion, everybody has one. I see sometimes the job I did for a living, people do not always, they're not invested in the community. Not all, but a lot of people aren't. They're there for a year, out. I just have a concern about that, that's all. Sorry about that.
That's your story?
Yep. I have concerns, that's all.
Oh, when I first opened this, I thought it was amazing. Everybody did a great job on this. But I did see there's going to be some red flags here, like, we're going to have to deal with some of these with all the residents. And tonight, I listened very intently, noted what everybody was saying. And, I'd love to see growth, obviously, but everybody had valid points going back to why did I move here? Okay, people move away to the open spaces like I did when I was young, and I haven't enough. But to me, I did write something up here, but I think we're kind of stuck, and we're at a crossroads where we've got literally roads, 159th Street, sitting in our lap. And you know what, guys? Yeah, we've got a gas station and a farm implement company. And there's no talk of anything else as far as I know. So we're already a couple years behind because that road's been done over a year. So having a plan, of course, if you have a plan and developers come out and take a look, they can say, oh, so you're going to have a little bit more diverse housing. And it's like still putting the cart before the horse. You need the housing before the business comes out. So that's why it's comprehensive, where it's all these combined, and they all have to be discussed and planned on. And to me, if we just leave things as is, and what I wrote out, we're just kind of going nowhere fast. And yeah, things will stay the same. But we've been, in our borders, all the other towns are, taking away the business we would like to get. The little downtown would be awesome. I mean, my wife and I drive to these other towns that have one. The park, you walk around. And it's something that, to live here, I mean, we don't have sidewalks in Chickasaw, right? So we walk on the street, and when UPS guy comes, we get off into the grass. But to have a place where you can walk around safely, well-lit, and walk to the pubs, or, restaurants, some clothing stores. Very, very important to bring this in. And to me, the last restaurant we got, I mean, Taco Bell in the storefront. I thought we were getting a whole Taco Bell. So I think being able to take in all the residents' input, and tonight was kind of a wake-up call. And there was a lot on this where I'm thinking, man, we're going to have to deal with this. And I think part of the reason is it was consultants, they put this whole thing together with your help, but there's things on here that I don't feel are very specific to Homer Glen. Maybe we got to look at those things. So that's my story.
Okay, I guess I'm off. So you guys know that I was on the steering committee, and there was other volunteer representatives. There's been a lot of, like George and Carrie both said, there's been a lot of misinformation, that there was no public community input. I looked at the 2005 comprehensive plan, and they had a 5-page or a 5-question community forum where people came together and answered 5 questions. They did a mailer that was very, very, very low response to back then. The community engagement in this process was so much better. People are saying that, you didn't ask us, you didn't ask. There was so much advertisement for getting this out. It went all the way back to 2017, like Carrie said, 2018 with the strategic plan, which I sat in this room with a couple hundred people, sat and pressed buttons or answered questions on that. Lots of people were here. People that were my neighbors were here. People that were business owners were here. And then when we put the steering committee together, there was representatives from each of the village committees in addition to staff members and trustees on that group. And we took all of that information. We did all of those workshops. Again, tables. You guys were here for a lot of those. Matt, you weren't because you weren't living here then, and we're on the plan commission. But we sat at tables, and you got to meet so many people from the community. People that own farms, people that own businesses, people that live, oh, you're my neighbor, I didn't even know that. Where I live, it's 5 acres. So there's a lot of people that own them. So we had a lot of input. So that's one of the big misinformation things that I just want to keep sharing, is that we did have a lot of input. When you look at the 2005 comprehensive plan, again, some of the things that the mayor pointed out, that VJ and the other staff pointed out, is that everything that's in this plan that's being proposed is in the 2005 comprehensive plan. It's there already. People need to read, people need to do their homework. Page 22 of the 2005 comprehensive plan talks about multi-family use. It's there. This plan, as VJ pointed out in his portion of the presentation, the draft plan actually reduces that multi-family use compared to what we have now. So people who say that the answer is to do nothing and let a good thing lie, that's irresponsible. It's irresponsible for us as community members, it's irresponsible for our trustees, and it's irresponsible for the staff that we hire to do the jobs that they're hired for. So doing nothing is not an option. I wish people would have stayed to hear some of what everybody had to say.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I am been here.
So I'm really appreciative that you guys are here. Matt, don't underestimate your part in what you've done and the value of the input that you're providing. Don't underestimate it, because it is valuable. It may be not in a method that everyone is used to hearing, but you brought to light some points and some comparisons that I do think people need to hear, and I think it's valuable for all of us to hear it, and for us in this process of looking at this last page that, can Russ see that potential revisions to the plan? Is Russ and Matt, can they see that it's still?
You can see that, right? Yeah, it's still up.
So you can see that it's up there.
Can I ask you what the potential?
You know, the points that you pointed out tonight in your letter, when you wrote your letter, you know, you had some really good points in there about like checks and balances, differences between 2005 versus now, and those kind of things. So it's really valuable. Russ, I wish he was here, he was out talking to the mayor, but just to say that I think everyone values what Russ has to say, being a former trustee. I value greatly what he has to say, and his input, although I would agree that a lot of what he said tonight was exactly what he said back in November, so I do agree with you with that. That was repetitive, and we asked not to have any repetition. But again, without his input, we wouldn't have some of the potential revisions to the plan, specifically adding back in the 2.5 acre rural residential land use category that specifically was brought up by us, and also scaling back the intensity of the development that was appeared on one of those sub-area concept items for Cedar Bruce area, which again, when the planners were looking at, we were talking about the sub-area concept designs, we looked at that area, and the people, when you went to that table, or that sub-area, everybody rotated through and looked at that spot. And basically what we said is, okay, you live here, where do you go for, you know, regular shopping, gas, things like that? Where do you go for those things? Where do you go, like if you want to get snacks, not big grocery shopping, snacks, where do you go? And everybody, a lot of people at that table said, I gotta go that many miles north, or I gotta go that many miles northeast, or I gotta go to, actually New Lenox is closer, but I don't want to spend my money in New Lenox, I'm spending it. So the thing that was proposed there was actually more like local commercial. We talked about that in this, I think when people saw that there was commercial there, they envisioned, you know, a Jewel grocery store or something there, and that's not, it was actually neighborhood local, a neighborhood commercial that was what might be a good idea to have there. Again, nothing with changing the zoning, but what could possibly go there to benefit the people in the community. So those are the kind of things that I appreciated your explanations, Melissa, on your definitions to the different items so that you could clarify and clear up some of those misunderstandings. I think they were beneficial for all of us to hear, even the people on this committee and not just the general community members. And I think when you're talking about what the input of the community members have, your explanations, and taking it back to someone like Russ pointing out and saying, hey, why do we have this here? Why is this in part of it? You know, I don't see where it would be beneficial. Well, now that we don't have New Lenox developing that Tierland site like they were going to, yeah, I agree. Now that the Forest Reserve is going to buy some property in that area, again, all things that were not happening when we first looked at this a year and a half ago. Now that the Forest Reserve is going to buy some more of that property and expand the forest preserve, maybe we don't need commercial in that area. Those are all valid things, and I'm glad everybody's participating. Again, Matt, don't underestimate your input on this, because it's important, okay? And keep participating. My only recommendation would be, as Brian put up, I did send a note over to Brian and said, I thought we needed to make sure that this thing stayed in hand, and people were respectful of everyone's voice and time, and respectful of the quiet, so that everyone could share their thoughts and ideas. So keep getting your family and your friends and everybody, but also please keep reminding them that the best input is a respectful input. Be part of the process, don't be part of the problem. There was a lot of finger pointing, people that said there's good stuff and walked out of the room. Those people don't want to be part of the process and part of making this a better community. They just simply want to say what they have to say and move on. And I know you're not that kind of person.
Yeah, I emailed you after the last one to try and be more part of the process.
Yes.
I still offer whatever you guys need from that perspective.
So one thing that might be helpful, especially from Matt, is take a look at this list. We'll post this on the website tomorrow, and give us your, input on each of those items. What do you feel, what do you think about these potential changes, and anything else specifically we should be changing in the plan? I think that's the kind of input that would be helpful at this stage.
One question about
Yeah.
the last one on the discussion topics, the potential industrial, hybrid industrial land uses.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you should put that typology in the future land use?
Staff was saying that we noted that this is not on the land use map right now, but it's in the plan listed as a typology. Like it's in our typology section that was prepared by the consultant. And so we, honestly, staff doesn't have a temperature on the plan commission board. We don't know how they feel about this type of use in the village, anywhere, actually, anywhere.
Right.
Because we don't have it in current, it's not allowable in current zoning right now, and nor is it allowed in the current comp plan, nor is it allowed in the proposed comp plan.
But I looked at the focus groups that you guys did, and I saw the industrial was all red except for the two brewery options, so.
We do get a lot of requests for breweries, I will tell you that, and that is an exact type of use here, and they have like nowhere to go in this town.
Just the general theme is, I think that the plan is, it's presented much better than the prior plan. It's presented better. The content, I think, is a little off, and there's so much uncertainty in it. There's so much that's unclear. If you take the mixed middle, and I look back at the focus group for the missing middle, and that got some positive feedback at the focus group, and I was surprised because everybody I talked to has no interest in having a duplex or something next to it. And when you take that out of putting it in a single family neighborhood, all it becomes is a duplex or triplex or quadplex. So the term missing middle, it almost implies that it's something that's needed. I was curious how that was presented. It's just very uncertain. The other one that is very uncertain is the mixed use. And I know that you're saying that the multi-unit housing allowance or whatever is going down, but so much is being allocated as mixed use that can blend and bleed into all of the stuff that's currently single family. If you take all of this 159th Street, we were here. You guys, a lot of you were here when the South Point development was talked about, and the amount that multi-unit bled in toward, single-family houses was a lot. And that, to me, that I don't know, it felt to me like that was very close to being approved. And there were the fact that we had these requirements, the what's the subdivision type?
Conservation design.
Yeah, and that is overly restrictive, but there is something in it that says, you know, if you can't fulfill it, then you can get an exception. It can't be for monetary purposes, but there's room to work with people within those. The plan for me, though, the biggest issue, one, the 58,000 number is nobody would want that, so that should not be in this plan. We should not be putting forth something that would get to that. Nobody wants that. And then just the lack of clarity on a lot of the different uses, and just the density overall, to change so many different places, a horse farm, you know, different large lots that currently have houses on them, and saying that those should be, you know, not multifamily, but moderate density residential. All of that, lowering the lot sizes, it just all adds up into something I don't want to be. I want to say, though, that you guys put a ton of time into this, and I want to see it through. Like I said before, I want to see it through to completion, but it's got to be something that's right for home run.
One thing I'd like to reply to these comments that you just made. Spend some time and go back and look at the 2005 comprehensive plan and then the proposed one now, and look at the growth projections. Okay, for me that put a lot of things in perspective. That this is just what Carrie and BJ and Melissa and everyone has been saying, is that this is a plan. We have to have a plan. To not have a plan is irresponsible, as I said before. We have to have a plan. And a plan is just that. It's a plan. It's not, we have to follow this exact. It's a guideline for how we're going to work when we discuss people that do want to come and live and work and build in our community. So take a look at those, because for instance, if you look at the 2005 comprehensive plan, the population estimates, the growth projection as of 2020, this past year, was putting our village at between 47.5 and 53.7. Okay, we're nowhere near that, as y'all know. We're nowhere near that. The projection in the new draft plan gets us to, by 2040, projects us at 44.5. Not even where the old one had us way above that. So again, it's a guideline, it's a plan. Look at some of those things, you know, when we're talking and having these conversations, because it is really important to see that. Like we were saying, things change. What was good for you when you first got married may not be good for you when you're looking at your retirement, with regards to where you live, where you work, what you do, how you raise your family, all those things, and that's all part of our community. So nothing stays the same, and we have to prepare for, in the best way and the most responsible way possible, for those things. And again, it is, I kept struggling trying to find, and Brian helped point out to me, and the staff pointed out to me with the mixed use, because we all have had concerns about that and talking about that. It's been the biggest question for a lot of us, is that this new plan controls that and minimizes that more than the existing one does. So again, you know, more misinformation, that all of a sudden these things are coming out of nowhere and they're not. So if it's okay with you guys, since Russ is in the room, can I repeat what?
Yeah.
Okay. So Russ, one of the things that I said was that thank you for staying, thank you for your input. Everyone here is very appreciative of your past help in the village, your current thoughts and ideas and your input. Don't undervalue or underestimate your part in this whole thing, because if you look at on the board at what the potential revisions to the plan are, two big things in that are things that you brought up to us. Adding back in that 2.5-acre rural residential land use category. Okay, it's there. It's one of the things that we're looking at, that, hey, yeah, you know what, that needs to be there. The other thing is talking about that Cedar and Bruce area, where the sub-area concept design and the focus groups, a lot of people thought, well, I'd like to have a corner store here or some community commercial there. And with the changes with tierling property not being built out as a senior housing area, and the Forest Preserve buying additional land out there to expand their programs, that, yeah, maybe we don't need commercial out there like we were looking at. Maybe we don't need it in that area. So again, those are all things that are valuable, and your input had a lot to do with that. And the way that you presented it.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay.
Can I just say something real quick? I appreciate that, those comments, so thank you. And I'm sorry that my presentation went down in flames. The file that was supposed to be on my USB drive was not there, that's why you saw the same map you saw last time. There was actually some new stuff in this one, but that's okay. I mean, you have a copy of what I was going to show. I had some additional comments and stuff, but that's fine. You know, just check your email, you know, when you get it, and it will be in there. I'm glad to hear that there was some consideration with the rural residential, because I just think that there's a few things in this village that are absolutely sacred, and I think our rural areas are one of them. They make us unique, above and beyond anyone else anywhere around here. Some people have little pockets of it. You got Lamont and places like that, but we have these two large areas that are completely unique. You can only find it over Glen. And I don't know that the consultant, as you know, as hard as they're working, has an understanding and a feel for that, because you don't see it very many places. So maybe that could have gotten overlooked a little bit, and some things done that could degrade that over time. But
well, I can tell you that in my participation on that steering committee, every opportunity that I had, I lived in the southeast area of the village, and in one of those unique areas with the very low density in the agricultural and horse farm and equine culture, and I hammered it down every opportunity I got. So there is and was, and there's a lot of people that, and we all agree, even those of us that are on that steering committee that don't live in that area, that's an important and unique area. And they do reflect that in different points throughout the area. You know, I kind of wish that some people would have stayed. BJ and Melissa, I'll drop you a note, because there was a couple of people that had some specific concerns with regards to their own property, the guy from Long Run Creek and the lady with the equine property on 143rd Street. And there are people, I mean, Trustee Beth was working with those Long Run Creek people. People are working hard. George is right. The village trustees are a hardworking group of people, and they're not developers. They're not in it to line their pockets with anything. They're here working for everybody that lives in this community. So there's a lot of people out there helping, but I think it's cool that we're talking about doing a joint workshop.
We'll plan for a workshop meeting and invite the village board, and in the next week or so, if you want to add anything to the list or any comments on the list, including you two gentlemen, send us the email, and we'll work towards that workshop meeting.
Yeah, and my only comments is we can't have our cake and eat it too if we don't grow. 159th Street isn't going to do anything until someone takes and redevelops that land. It will stay where it is for 20 years, and most of the people who came out tonight, that's exactly what they want. That's not the reality of what's going to happen. So for us to be able to control, to be able to provide rooftops, a lot of people in the steering committees wanted to have, everyone wants a Portillo's, everyone wants, you name they're not going to come. They're not going to come until we hit a certain threshold of rooftops. And if we don't get one of those, then we don't get one of those. But if that is one of the wants, that's one of the ones that had all the green stickers, it's not going to happen until we have more housing. The school districts split over 4 towns. We really can't fix that. That's a different governmental body. Water is a different governmental body. We can buy and build our own water infrastructure, and we're working on that too. But there's minimal things that we have to do as responsible planners of this community. And so it's a give and take. Most of the people came out here represented a very small segment, and there's a large part of our town that is underrepresented or unrepresented because they're working. They don't know what's going on. George said it well. We don't want to be pigeonholed as an elitist and have to lose all of our income through lawsuits. But we want to develop smartly.
I will say something, like you said, the people on the 100, or here at 159, don't want to develop. I actually said, I live there. I want to develop it. I hope it gets developed. I'd like to walk, like Jonathan, somebody said, walk to a pub, walk out. I live, my address is 16035, so block off 159. I want it. We just don't have it now. I want to see that growth, and I want to see businesses come. But like I said, I do have some concerns about multi-family housing. I do have concerns about it, but I also want it to develop too. I want it, whatever needs to be developed, I want growth.
So one of the things I think that staff brought up along this whole process was that with regards to multifamily housing, that we would develop a zoning area for that.
So that's what this whole plan
So
would
then
call
we would have control over it.
I'm just saying, I just have concern, that's all.
Yeah, I think that's not an action item, but a recommendation in that chapter that talks about the village staff establishing so it would be an overlay mixed use district, so underlying zoning would still be there, I think is what the recommendation is.
Gotcha.
So if it was commercial right now, it's to be commercial underneath or whatever, and then the mixed use overlay allows you to do however that zoning district gets, established.
Yeah.
It has to go through the same process. So you take that entire code through here through planning commission, and you scrutinize all of those things that are being proposed by staff, and But typically in mixed use zoning districts, there's a lot of flexibility, but there's also so when you have PDs come in, I know Russ talked about PDs a little bit. And I think that there's not always a set, things that the developer's trying to achieve, but we can write into mixed use zoning districts, what do we want? What are those wants that we really want to have in the village, that we want to have in every development that comes in? X, Y, Z, this is a laundry list, 1 through 12, you have to achieve if you want to get all these other things in your development. And I think that's the kind of stuff that we look at when we craft that code section, And on here, we talked about restricting how much multifamily goes in that corridor is an option that staff is giving you. So if we feel like you're concerned about how much multifamily goes into the mixed use district, tell us what it is that you want it to be like. So is it 10%? Is it 8%? There could be a percentage. There could be it could be that it's overall. It could be that each portion, every new development, it can only be this or whatever. Or it's none. I don't know. It's whatever the feedback is, but.
I agree, and when I think about that, I just think that people think in the back of their mind, I do, I think that people say multi-family apartments, they're looking at this massive apartment complex. I think that's what people think. And I'm sure, I know it's not going to be that way, but that's what people think, that's what I believe.
And I think a good example of, because you have to have mixed use in a PUD to be able to have a downtown area. Woodridge has 7 bridges, it's got the golf course, it's got the brewery, it's got apartments that start at $1,500 a month, and there's hundreds of them, if not thousands in that area. And so that's an option that we can see. And are there Section 8 in there? Yeah. But, you can't have your cake and eat it too if there's zero give and take. We're stuck with a zoning code that has become so restrictive that nobody's going to come, and a lot of people are fine with that. And that's irresponsible, in my opinion.
Well, it's unsustainable,
It is.
I said we were stuck. It could get worse. It could get to the point where our house values go down. And, as a builder, my dad taught me when I was young, when the new homes come in, the older homes, price increases, okay? So you've got houses that, say, sell for $500, yours was $300. Well, guess what? Now it's $375. And it's a pretty tried and true, aspect of building the economy. And the conservation design, I wasn't aware of it until, Plan Commission. And that explains a lot. It's just, I'm getting tired of driving through the whole town, and it's exactly the same as it was, really 20 years ago, So, obviously, that's got to be reworked, and it has to be a win-win situation for developers and the village. it has to come to something. It really does. I think it's really important. And to establish these new subdivisions that are either the same or better, than the ones we live in now, okay? It can be done, combined with open space. I'm also envisioning maybe a golf course again, guys were out there, COVID, it's 30 below, they're out there golf.
9-hole par 3?
Yeah.
There's a cedar? Perfect.
And the homes around it, they don't have to be estate homes, So we have a lot of flexibility in it, I think. And we need to entertain a lot of that flexibility and start having the development come in. And we're just going to kind of sit here. And we may never get, another commercial corridor. So it's all like I said before. It's like you've got to have the housing for the roofs, the businesses to come in. Because now, yeah, we open 19 businesses. That's really just a trickle. I talked to Scott Jansen, the building department today. Scott, how many houses did we build last year? Because I think 2 years ago we only built like 80. He said, no, it's a lot less than that. And I've got clients looking like for vacant lots to build a house, and there's nothing out there unless it's half in a flood zone.
Yeah.
So we just need to diversify.
Or it's not for sale. People are
Right.
sitting in them.
And hence, our open space program, we can take these properties. They're just sitting there, like we did in Hitchett, so.
All right, Mr. Chairman, what's the direction?
All right, so we'll move to have our next meeting regarding this old news or old business topic with direction of staff to do a workshop. And what's that?
We're going to need to make a motion to continue, or what are we doing?
Yeah, you do need to make a motion to continue.
Make a motion to continue to a
workshop meeting. Continue to a future workshop meeting.
Okay, who's going to second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Opposed?
We have to do a voice vote or a polling vote?
I'm just curious, who motioned, was it DJ or was it?
No, I
You can call it whoever you, I think it was pretty sure it was me. And then, is there any new business?
No, the next meeting most likely will be canceled, so the next meeting will be in February for the planning commission.
We don't have any cases for us.
Not for the 21st meeting.
We have quite a few that are just kind of sitting out there. We haven't heard from, but.
Commissioners, anything, any other reports or anything? I have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone.